The following conversation contains extremely mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised. So
is that even a question?
Is the tree's named Dolly? So there's a tree here. It's named Dolly.
Yeah.
Because it was top heavy.
It was top heavy.
What kind of tree is that?
What better name? It's a ficus. And it's
Is that a native Texas
20
tree?
feet tall.
20. So we are sitting in a room with a 20-foot tall tree in the corner. There's also a swing. What is that swing? It's like hanging off, I want to say, 3 50-foot long chains. The swing is a circle entirely with like white, feathery covers and 3 gray pillows in the corner. Is that like a sex swing of some kind?
I wish. That would mean I'm having sex. Maybe I had a wrong idea for it. I should have actually said, yes, it is a sex swing, and then that would manifest that, right?
Oh,
see?
right.
Instead,
yeah.
I'm like, no, it's just a swing that you swing on when you're sad.
Right. Oh, that's what it is. It's a sad swing.
Oh, man. I'll tell you, during my divorce, I would
Which
sit,
one?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
I was seeing someone recently. He kept going, "Which husband?" Like,
3 husbands, 3 divorces.
Yeah.
58.
Thank you for telling 57? The whole world that.
50. Well, I love you.
58.
I love you. 58. And
but my first one was when I was 19 years old. I was married for a year.
So you were married, divorced, and bankrupt by the time you were 20.
Bankrupt twice. Oh, I was bankrupt by the time I was married. Yeah. Bankrupt and divorced by the time I was 20 years old. I came out of the gate just like fell down.
When people,
face down.
If someone you thought you had a connection with, but you never met them before, you bump into them somewhere or whatever, and they say, well, give us the 1-minute Suzy Batiz life story. And I've heard you do this, and I know you do it well. So could you just tell our listeners, we're going to talk about the room in a second here.
Yeah.
But what's the story?
So I'll tell you the story, and I'm going to go through it quickly because know that I've done a lot of work around this. I'm not dismissing the trauma of a lot of it, and what I want to focus on is positivity and all of that, so I don't spend a lot of time there. Okay, so I was born in Arkansas. I have 2 parents. I was born poor, what we would consider poor.
Rural Arkansas?
Jonesboro. I was in the rice fields.
Rice fields.
Yeah, an hour from Memphis, though. That's what saved my life. Memphis, got some soul. So anyway, my dad was a bipolar alcoholic. My mother was a writer, had me when they were 18 years old. Very violent marriage. And when I was 10 years old, they got divorced, and I was happy, which is really weird because what 10-year-old is happy during a divorce? Stepdad enters the picture at 12 years old. He molested me. And then I was raped at 16. That's how I lost my virginity. At 18, I lost my best friend, and I was married, bankrupt, and divorced by the time I was 20 years old.
Lost your best friend?
Yeah. Her name was Jackie. Yeah, she was amazing.
Yeah,
and,
how?
In a car accident. Yeah. And it really, I'd already not trusted God, and that's when I think I finally threw the towel in. And, I'm back there now, but for a lot of years, I wasn't interested in any sort of, I really developed a fuck you attitude towards God. And that's when I started striving so hard, I think, right? And that was the final straw.
And that was what age are we here?
18.
18.
Yeah.
Your parents are divorced at 10. You're happy. You move in with your mom.
I moved in with my mom.
Your mom is addicted to painkillers.
Yes, painkillers.
She remarries.
Yes.
You have a sister with you.
Yes.
And there's the stepdad.
Yes, which I didn't like. And they broke up one time. And I remember making the conscious choice as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, of my mom was crying all the time and in her room and depressed. And I knew I didn't want to take care of her anymore. So they got back together. And I really sold out or made peace with something. I was like, I am willing to have this man that everything in me did not like and didn't trust in my house, so I didn't have to take care of my mother.
Wow.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there was sexual abuse happening.
That was before the sexual abuse.
Oh, okay.
They broke up before that. I knew everything in my being, all my radars went off. And I was like, this is not a good guy. I just knew that at, 11 years old. And instead of, when my mom broke up with him and was sad and depressed, I made a conscious choice at 11 years old to have her get back with him. I was like, you seem to love him. You should get back with him. Because I didn't want to take care of my mother anymore. I'd taken care of her, I felt, my entire life, right? And I wanted to break.
Yeah, you're 11 years old.
11 years old, yeah. And then he started molesting me when I was 12. And this is another reason I went to not trusting God, is that I used to pray. I was raised Church of Christ, very, very disciplined, right? A religious family. And I prayed to God every night that it not happen to my sister. I prayed and I said, I can handle it, but don't let it happen to her.
God, you're making me cry.
And then when I found out that my sister had been molested too, I really was so angry at God, because I thought, how? Because I prayed with every single fiber in my being, every single night, pleading to please not let it happen to her. Now, of course, I've looked back and went like, how are you supposed to navigate that when you're 12? It's amazing that I've heard in therapy that actually when you're in a lot of trauma that you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex, right? So that's the reason I was never good in school. I was a C- student at best. And my therapist, I always thought I was not smart, that I wasn't an intelligent person. It was one of my hang-ups. And I was doing...
Why'd you think that?
Well, because I could barely make a C- on my test.
Why'd you think that was?
Well, what my therapist told me, because I was doing work on it, and she said, what were you thinking about in class every day? And I said, going home. And she said, yeah, so what happened is my prefrontal cortex was busy with the trauma. I don't know if it's but my brain was busy. So I didn't have access to the part of your brain that learns.
Of course.
And it made so much sense.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, because you're also one of the smartest people I've ever met. No, you are though, and you know that about yourself. So this is partly why the story is shocking for people that are getting to know you now, that, you're extremely intelligent. So it's so you, okay, now you're 11. 12, this guy's coming back in the picture. You share openly, and you've shared openly a lot, and I appreciate your vulnerability. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about. You share openly how you were sexually abused. Mm-hmm. You give it the term molestation, which I don't even know what that even means personally. Yeah. Is that a specific word? Is that like a word from...
I don't know.
Now I guess they just call it sexual abuse, but...
Yeah, I guess so. I always call it molestation.
But then so this guy is in your picture till how long? How old are you when he moves out, or what happens here? Well, because you mentioned that you were raped when you were 16.
Yes, that's how I lost my virginity. So my stepfather used to fondle me. So he would come in the middle of the night, and I would wake up, and he's fondling me, right? And I used to lay like papers out on the floor. I used to try to block the door. I would try to shove clothes and I put papers on the floor because I was hoping that it would wake me up. And what is so ironic, Neil, about my path of always awakening, right? Self-awakening, is I think based upon that, I could not wake up. And then I would wake up and he would be mid-act. Because my thought was if I could wake up, then I could stop him, right? Which is kind of crazy.
Did your mom know about any of this at all?
I don't know, She stayed with him her entire life. She broke up with him a year before she died, which was another betrayal. That one I still get teary about. You have your mother that chooses someone that hurt your child so deeply.
Oh, so she did know about it eventually.
Oh, yeah. It came out when I was 16.
You're 16, and you are living an hour from Memphis, northwest Arkansas? Northeast Arkansas. So I was in northwest Arkansas a lot. And take me into that year of your life.
16? Yeah, the good news is, as I said,
As a motorcycle whizzes by you.
I told my mother about the molestation. My dad had a dream. He was very prophetic, which is, I think, where I get my deep spiritual roots in nature. He used to tell me how the universe worked when I was 4 years old. So I grew up being programmed in really metaphysics. Even though he was Christian, he got kicked out of all the churches he went to. And I didn't know until I was 40 he was talking about metaphysics. I called him and I said, Daddy, I said, you know that stuff you taught me when I was young? And he's like, yeah. I go, it's called metaphysics. He's like, what? So I started sending him books, which is real fun.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, so he had this prophetic dream that I was in a man's hands. He calls me, and I told my mother that I had been molested, or what, my stepdad had been doing. And
wait, your dad calls you?
My real dad.
And he says in a dream he saw what?
He said, I saw you and your sister in a man's hand, and I want to know what's going on.
Oh my gosh.
And
wow.
I said nothing. And then finally he was so adamant. He knew how prophetic it was. He said, you need to tell me what's going on now.
Wow.
And that's how that came out. Yeah.
How old were you then?
16.
Oh, that was 16. Okay, so that
16.
happened.
That
then
happened.
You told your mom.
Told my mom.
How was that conversation?
She said, it happened to me too.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was
God.
it.
Oh.
Yeah, and then she's ended up staying with him.
Oh.
There was drama for a couple of days. He was gone. And then to see him walk back through the door was just a massive betrayal, right? So I lived with him in the house until I was 18, which is why I got married the first time.
Wait. But the abuse did not continue.
The abuse didn't continue.
But then there was the rape.
Then there was the rape, yeah. High school party, I was drinking, I wake up in a pool of blood.
Oh.
And I remember telling him no, like it wouldn't fit. Like I remember just saying no. And I didn't know until I just did work on it like 4 years ago. My list was so long, right? I've been doing therapy for 20 years.
Good for you. I'm on year 12. I'm looking forward to 20. I got a lot more
it's
to go
so
down.
Good. It's so
it's
good.
The best. Everyone should do it.
But I always just dismissed it as I'd been drinking. There's the food. And my therapist said, no, you dissociated. So you passed out. So I woke up in this pool of blood. And I'd lost my virginity. He had raped me. Now, the worst part of the story for even me is that was really horrible, that he goes to school the next day and he tells everyone he slept with me. So then I became a slut.
Oh, my God, Suzy, I am
I
so
know.
sorry. This is just...
It was bad. It wasn't good, And then I lost my best friend at 18, which was, again, felt like betrayal of God. Right? And then... Can
I stop here for a second?
Yeah.
Because you've been very open and so you go back to school. There's a painful... There's no thought of going to the police of any kind? Or?
No, I didn't. I really thought it was my fault. I think that's one of the things that happens with abuse that I've told is that the person with child abuse usually, they take it upon guilt and shame, like they feel guilty, like they caused it. So I think that was already in my psyche, like it was just so traumatizing for me. And then I became a slut, and that was it. I never thought to fight back. So many times in therapy I think, well, I could have probably, but again, if your prefrontal cortex, right, is not accessible because of the, trauma, then you don't have good decision-making skills, right? And you can't be expected to, which is why I'm an advocate for therapy. It's good if you're in that sort of situation. This is why trauma
victims, there's a problem with our legal system because we have sexual predators, and when the trauma victim is on the stand with a lot of courage and support and in a very vulnerable position, they get cross-examined, and the judge has ruled, in cases in Canada, well, you can't trust this person because X, Y, and Z. And what you're pointing out is that, no, the trauma victims, this is a problem with the legal system here.
Yeah.
So you had thought, even at the time, you didn't think of going to the police. And if you had,
probably wouldn't.
He said, she said, or whatever. Like you end up in a tough, and you're in Arkansas, and the year is like 1970 something.
Yeah, God, it would have been 78.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
78 probably. Yeah.
So those 2 years, how did you navigate this sort of, as you said, slut reputation in school? Like that must have been a complete, does that not change everything for you socially? Like how'd you navigate?
Yeah, I just dissolved. I hid within myself. I was really a walking zombie, just trying to get through, just let me get through of life. And I still get teary when I think about that because when you're in those situations, like you can't even imagine waking up tomorrow. It's you just are trying to get through moment by moment by moment. And it really is survival, and one could argue if it actually is survival, but what happens in one's psyche, in my experience, is you just got to get through the next moment, And
you did.
And I did, yeah.
Because
over and over
a
and
lot
over
of people
again.
in similar situation may not have got through the next moment. There was an inner strength there that, I always say add a ... You just something had you keep going.
Yeah.
I cannot go on. I will go on.
Yes.
So would that come from? Was there a strength from your dad? It sounded like a little bit, or your sister, or something must have been inside you that helped you.
Yeah, that's such a great question. My so what it was that my dad, from a very early age, would draw me the universe, and he would teach me. He was like, you can't believe in angels if you don't believe in devils. So he taught me about duality, and the amazing thing that he taught me was that, but here's the deal. He was teaching me to not be afraid. He said, devils can never overtake angels because it lives in perfect balance. So evil can never overtake good. So I had this programmed in my psyche from a young child. So while these things were happening, I wasn't afraid because I knew that the bad could never overtake the good.
You believed that.
I believed it, yeah. And I still do. I still do. When people tell me about how bad the world is, and it's an equal balance, but we don't see that. We think it's out of balance, but nature itself balances. And we live in duality. So there's going to be equal bad as there is good. You're going to have all that polarization. That's the way it is. Now, I'm not saying we can't create a new reality, but whatever.
So you channel this inner strength inside you. You go through 16, 17, 18. You're at the graduating year, your best friend dies of a car accident.
Yep.
Now what?
Now my, high school boyfriend asked me to marry him at a family gathering. And
like his family?
It was my family.
Oh, at your family's gathering?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I felt, of course, all the pressure, but I also am an opportunist. I knew the way out. I couldn't figure out how to get out of the house, right? So I was like, great.
I've heard you say in interviews, I didn't think you could live alone. I didn't think you could live alone. I never saw anyone living alone.
I didn't. Yeah. So I married him. And I remember the day standing at the end of the aisle and every single thing in me just saying no. Okay, let's go back. So this is why I teach people about trusting themselves. Go back to the molestation. The first thing that happened with my stepdad is he was sitting on a couch and he was exposed. And he told me to come here. And Neil, I had to almost walk through a force shield of energy because I did not want to go. So this is why I'm passionate about teaching people that where I found power was knowing that I have that tuning into me that does know. Now, because of my programming or whatever, I went forward anyway, but my power came from knowing that I knew that this was not good. Right?
Yeah.
And that to me is empowerment. So I have gone back at many times in my life knowing when I knew and then still did it anyway.
What's the still did it anyway then?
Well, okay, so when I was 12, right, I knew
I'm
not
not
to
challenging it at all. I'm just so curious.
No,
because,
yeah, I like that.
I'm not challenging it at all.
So what I knew was to not go. I knew it was wrong. Okay? I knew it was wrong. That's what I knew. I did it anyway. Why did I do it anyway? Walk forward anyway was because of my conditioning. I wasn't raised to know that you could say no. I was raised that you have to say yes and please the parents and the adults and the mother and father and all the Christian bullshit that goes around what a child has to do, right? To be a, good kid.
Dutiful,
yeah. So I did that. Yeah. But I knew it was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're 18. He proposes. You're at a family get-together. It's your side of the family. You feel the family pressure. You say yes. You knew it was the way out. Even walking down the aisle, you knew this is wrong, this is wrong. You say I do, and then...
I did it. I cried my entire honeymoon.
Oh, where were you?
Yeah, in Hawaii. Then I told him, I promised him if I ever cheated on him that I would divorce him. And
what?
Oh yeah, that was my promise.
That's a promise? That's a weird promise.
That's a weird promise. It's because I had one foot out the door. Don't you see? I was already setting up the end, Neil. Come on.
I got a good promise for you. I'm going to cheat on you and divorce you soon.
It wasn't that conscious, but I see now where I was setting it up, right? Setting up the cell.
Whatever a guy wants to hear on their honeymoon.
Exactly. Because I everything in me knew that I didn't want to get married. And I did. And I cheated on him with my boy's dad. It was a very conscious choice. I went immediately back.
With your boy's dad? What do you mean?
Well,
with someone you had a child
my sons.
with.
Yeah, I had my children with. But I went back and I said, told him what happened.
What happened?
I did this, that I had sex with someone else.
I don't know.
And I was going to get a divorce. Well, yeah, I just told the truth.
No, but how'd you meet this other guy?
I had this idea at 19 that I wanted to open an exercise salon. Yep. So I called about this exercise equipment and his mother owned the company. He came down and he was the most charismatic thing I'd ever seen.
And rich.
Yeah. Oh, Rich was a good point.
I've heard you talk about it before.
And that was very appealing. And I ran off with him.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you did the honorable thing. You went back to husband number one and you said...
Immediately.
Yeah, you know what? Like...
This is what I did.
I
remember our deal? Well, I kept my deal. Remember that very promising deal I made you? Could have been smarter. He might have figured it out.
So you go with this other guy, okay?
Yep.
And I've been the first guy before, by the way.
Oh,
so
I
I very much relate with that side of the story as well. Like,
it's nothing about you. It's always about the person.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's true. It's my experience. Like, it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get married, and I said yes. I mean, it's
right.
And
you know how
he's a great guy.
How you left him for someone you had your children with?
Yes.
3 children.
2
children. Though you have 3 now.
I have 3. Yes.
So that's a
spoiler
alert.
Spoiler alert. Say I've been married a gazillion times.
Yeah. No, but wait. For me, my partner left me for somebody else, and to the best of my knowledge, they're happily together with a kid. So I mean, it's so maybe that's the path. And look, I got lucky, and then I met Leslie. So it all works out.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, and it's dissonance. Yeah. And the wonderful thing about dissonance is it really has to be dissonant for both people if they were really honest about the energetic exchange that's happening. But usually one person isn't
I was
honest.
willing to lie forever.
Exactly.
I felt the distance and I was willing to lie. I thought this is what marriage is. I just thought this is marriage.
Yep.
You're not supposed to have sex. You don't need a sex swing. There's no sex.
That's
That's marriage.
That might have helped.
That's the joke.
Maybe that's what you were missing. What's the sex swing?
Yeah, that was the problem. So you go with this other guy. You have 2 kids. Now, tell me about because I know you said married, divorced, and bankrupt by the time I'm 20.
Yeah, because before I did an exercise salon, I had a bridal salon that I bought, and I bought really bad inventory, and I filed bankruptcy. Yeah, at 20 years old.
How'd you get? Then you could just start up another business. I
just kept rolling.
Okay.
Like there's no thought, a lot of thought here. Okay, are you not getting the drift?
Okay.
I was just steamrolling.
Now you're running an exercise.
I was steamrolling downhill.
Downhill.
Yeah. Oh yeah, downhill.
Things start to look good here, but no.
So yeah, I meet the boy's dad and my second husband, and my family hated him. So I was really in this middle place, and I tried to kill myself. I took a bottle of Tylenol, and they said I had acetaminophen that was 100 times what your body could handle by the time I got to the emergency room. And they gave me this antidote, and they said they had told my family, like, we'll know in 72 hours if she's going to live or die, because it either works or doesn't. You can't get a liver transplant in 3 days. So it's interesting. I'm building this in 72 hours. But in 72 hours, I seem to be fine. And what I find amazing years later is here's this 20-year-old in Arkansas, tries to kill herself, and no one talks to me about therapy.
Well,
never had even heard of it since. Or
you had nerves, or even the label. Mental health as a thing has just ballooned from nothing to something.
But if someone tries to kill themselves, you think somebody's going to sit down and go, "Can we talk?"
Doesn't Dolly Parton, who we were talking about before, have so many songs about sort of like, mommy's been locked up? Like there's a lot of songs with this vibe of like, there's a whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole culture I don't know much about, but you're experiencing and you're sharing your story.
What was interesting is I had a out-of-body experience. I remember watching myself in the bathroom mirror as I just took one after one.
But what prompted
of an entire bottle. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know where to go. I was stuck in the middle. My family hated. I just ran off with this guy.
But didn't you like the guy?
I did. But, nobody's ever asked me that. See, you're so good. I think I probably didn't trust him. Yeah. That makes sense. I've never thought about that. But yeah, I felt lost. I didn't have my family. They didn't like me. I'm with this guy that I don't really trust.
Well, how do you define trust? What do you mean you didn't trust him?
I didn't feel safe with him.
Why? Is it because of previous traumas as well, possibly? Or
no, I think it's because of possibly his personality that I hadn't really seen yet, a very controlling personality. Like something just was giving me red flags, a lot of red flags. And I've often read that people that try to take their life, it is because they don't know of any other choice. So I wasn't taught to make choices, and I didn't see any other way out but that. And honestly, come on, Neil, life was pretty hard for me. It takes a lot to get your ass out of bed and put your shoes on every morning. I can still feel the deepness and just how hard that is and can be, for someone. And
so you had been through so much pain.
So much. And I thought, who wants to do this?
It's a lot.
It's a lot, dude.
I don't think a lot of people make it through all that.
Well, I almost didn't, I really tried. I remember telling a doctor once, and he said, "What'd you do it with?" And I said, "Oh, Tylenol." He goes, "Oh, you really wanted to die?"
Really?
Oh, it breaks down in your system so fast.
Oh, really?
And it just crashes your liver.
I had no idea. When you said Tylenol, I thought, sorry, but my brain went the other way.
No, it totally destroys your liver with that amount.
There's no way to even do that kind of research back then.
Oh, no.
You had an out-of-body experience. You wake up in the hospital 3 days later?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't pass out. I came back into my body, about an hour later, and I called my sister, and I said, I just took a bottle of Tylenol.
Oh.
And she said, what? And she rushed me to the hospital, and, you know, they're doing all the pumping of my stomach and everything. The problem is Tylenol breaks down so fast. Already so much had gotten into my bloodstream. But I don't know why to this day, why I called my sister, why I kind of came to. I think maybe I came to my senses or came back into my body.
Wow, you were on like the brink.
Yeah.
Right before that phone call.
Because my liver would have crashed for sure.
You are on like death's edge.
Yeah. Wow. And I didn't think about it that way. I really thought everybody crying, they knew that either I'd live or die in 72 hours. Also, the hospital didn't tell me that.
Right.
Wouldn't that be nice to know? Kind of. Well, it's like you could say goodbye to people. It's just, she could die in 72 hours. Don't tell her, you know.
Oh, you didn't know this?
No. They told my family, but not me.
You were conscious.
I was conscious, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why are you guys crying? Like, I'm alive. I was just like brushing under the rug, like, we got to keep going, people.
Oh, really? That was your reaction?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, my gosh, Suzy, I thought you would be like, I've had a friend attempt his life and eventually take it. And in between the attempt and, you know, his reaction was not that. Let's get on with it. Let's go.
Oh, but see, I just had a cycle. I got to keep rolling. That's it. You got to keep running. You got to outrun it, Neil. That was my motto. You just got to go faster than it, you know, because it's going to catch you.
What's it?
Pain. I think pain is it, you know. So I kept setting myself up for more and more pain. That was my normal. So I meet this guy, and then I got pregnant. And I'd never really thought, of course, growing up with the life I had, who wants to sit around and think about having a family, right?
So when you attempted Zuza, you were not pregnant at that time?
No.
Right. You got pregnant after.
Right after.
Right.
And I remember I didn't even know if I wanted to have a child, you know. It was just a lot. It was a lot. And I did. And when I was pregnant with him, I was hungry one morning. My blood sugar had dropped. And he kicked me in the tailbone and broke my tailbone when I was pregnant.
What?
Yeah. So that was the first time that the physical abuse started. And then it was in and out of that pregnancy at various times, and it started really building. Now, couple this with people say, like, why did you stay? I really believed it was all my fault. Remember? So here's the girl when she's young that takes in all the guilt and shame, that believes it's her fault. There's a natural programming that happens that this is my fault, right? There's something wrong in me that's making this happen. So the peak of and then I went ahead and had a second child in that marriage. And the peak, I really thought he was going to save my marriage. My first child, I say, saved my life. He gave me a reason to live. Remember? Because I just tried to kill myself the year before.
Is this Dustin?
Yeah, Dustin.
Oh.
So I've told him, like, he saved my life.
Oh.
Thank God I was pregnant, you know, and had him. And then I had my second child, and the peak of the divorce was really during that pregnancy.
The peak of the divorce?
I mean, I'm sorry, the peak of the abuse.
No, sorry, that was me not.
No, I think I said divorce.
We're simpatico.
Okay, got it. Whatever.
The abuse.
The peak of the abuse was during that, and I was getting like pool sticks broken over my back.
What? Do you know where this is coming from? Like generationally, or?
Oh, in him?
Yeah, or like. Yeah, like, what's going on? Is this just like an illness that we have throughout our society we've had forever? Like, that's what I can't figure out.
Pain begets pain. Until we start cleaning it up and clearing it up for the future generations, the same cycle, it's a vibration. It's going to keep getting repeated, which is why it's so important to go in and do that work.
I'm so, like, it's just crushing me to hear this, because I've listened to you on so many interviews and I've not heard this before. You know, it's
because I haven't had the best interviewer. It's true.
But now you're pregnant with the second child, or you have the second child?
I'm pregnant with the second child.
Okay, and then what happens?
And then Actually, one day I woke up after my second child and I felt very like foggy brained. I couldn't think. I felt like I was going crazy. So I called a psychiatrist, because remember, I don't know the difference between psychiatrist, psychologist. I get an appointment.
That's still missing.
Exactly.
People,
So I go to a psychiatrist. I had an hour appointment and I talked for 3 hours.
Wow. 3 hours.
Yeah. And I said, when do I get to come back? And he said, you don't need to come back. You're more sane than I am. You need a coach. You got to get the hell out.
Get the hell out of what?
That marriage.
And you're like, what, 8 months pregnant here?
No, I'd already had my second child. But yeah, shortly after.
You go for a 1 hour appointment with a psychiatrist.
You
stay for 3 hours, so presumably the appointment's after you get canceled or something.
Right.
So this psychiatrist kind of just asked, like,
well, I don't know. I don't know what he did.
What is compelling the psychiatrist to just keep going? Like, I guess he was.
Well, I came in.
You gotta get out. Like, what a gracious and helpful.
Oh.
I mean, that was a nice.
Incredible.
That was a nice. So this person seemed to have been a bit of an angel here.
He was an angel for sure, because that's what woke me up to the fact of just, hold on, it's not my fault. Like, I got to get out, which I knew to get out, right? Like intuitively, but because of everything I didn't. So I waited for an opening. Yeah, and that opening was that my ex-husband got arrested in Memphis. He was on a trip with a friend.
You're making air quotes.
Yeah, he was going with a friend to Texas, and he got arrested in Memphis.
Or Memphis?
No, to Texas. We were living in Kentucky.
Okay,
he was driving to Texas.
Kentucky now. Sorry, I didn't follow that.
Yeah. Well, I moved.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, I moved. Yeah, but he was arrested in Memphis, and he called me. He said, "I'm arrested," and I said, "For what?" And he said, a pound of cocaine, $10,000 cash.
Oh my God, your husband.
And a gun with no bullets. That people used to say we were drug dealers, and I would laugh like, ha ha, yeah, we're big drug dealers.
You didn't know about this?
No. I knew that I found cocaine in my retail store that I had called Dress to Kill. I had found it twice, and he blamed it on a friend. He got arrested for drugs.
Right.
Neil, this is a whole.
Okay, but
this is a whole John Grisham novel. This whole time, but
he gets arrested. He's in Memphis. You're in Kentucky. He calls you up. And then what? You go to Memphis?
Yeah, I went
with the kids.
No, I left my children there with his mother.
Okay,
and I went to Memphis and I got him out of jail. And then when I got back, because I didn't want him to be hurt, right? I just wanted out. And I convinced him to, in between this time, I went to go see attorneys, and they told me I could never have my children because they were wealthy and we lived in a small town. So I had to have a way out, and they had given me advice that if I could move out of state and stay there during the time you have to live in the state to file for divorce, then I would have a better chance because of the laws, and they didn't have any power in that state. So for me, when I got the call of the drug arrest, it was the opening. I had a plan. It was immediate, like, okay, I'm going to go get him out of jail. I came back. I convinced him to move back to Memphis, which was out of state, because we needed a fresh start. I should really, really win an Oscar for that performance, right?
Tell me.
Well, yeah, I just convinced him that we needed to move. And my whole plan was...
To the place he just got arrested.
Which is crazy. But I did. So I convinced him of that. The minute I got in Memphis, I went and found an attorney and said, how long do you have to live here? I'm 23 years old. No, 25
You
now.
sell Dress to Kill.
I sell Dress... Oh, yeah. All that. Sold all that.
You're good at names from the beginning,
But
Suzy.
Yep. So I'm 25 years old, and I'm navigating, getting my husband out of jail. Yep.
Wow.
Went to Memphis by myself. Yep.
Running a business.
I need the best drug attorney. Let's go down there.
Wow.
So, yeah, I told an attorney when I moved to Memphis, I said, how long do you have to live here? He said 6 months. I said, okay, 6 months to this day, I want you to file for divorce.
6 months to get... I don't get it. You got to stay there 6 months for what?
To have legal residency in order to file for divorce.
And Tennessee was a better state to file for divorce than Kentucky.
Okay, Neil, we're not talking about better. It was my one opening to get out.
Yeah. You did
in my mind.
So 6 months later, you go back to this guy. You say, do the paperwork.
Well, no, there's a whole bunch of drama in between there that takes place that we'll have to leave for the movie someday.
Okay, but 6 months later, what happens?
Yeah, I filed for divorce.
And he okay, so
before that he had found out, and there was all this drama. But
you were successful. But then what about? Then where'd you live?
Well, yeah, I got evicted. He had found out somehow that I had contacted the attorney. I don't know if they still to this day if they sent him a letter in the mail or called or something, and he left immediately. And less than I don't even remember, probably a month and a half later, I got kicked out of the condo we were living in because he hadn't paid rent. Because remember, he controlled all the money and everything. So he hadn't paid rent. So then I just didn't have a place to live. And I was just kind of floating about for a bit. I wasn't like on the streets, that sort of homeless, but couch surfing with 2 children level. And I meet my third husband, and thought a partner was going to save me. And I will tell you, my third husband, I met him and I said, I need help. And he said, let's get an apartment together. And I was like, great, And I really feel so grateful because he did carry me. I prayed in the second marriage when I was, getting beaten up like all the time. I would pray to God to send me an angel. And I do believe he was that angel. And I felt really indebted to him for many years.
His name?
Hector.
Hector is it Hector
Batiz?
Batiz.
Yeah.
Hector Batiz. And you were together for how long?
26 years.
Wow. And there's a child as well.
Yeah, we had a daughter. She's 28.
The angel.
Yeah, the angel. Yeah, he's a sweetheart. And I really felt like I always, number one, life was tough. Number two, even though, like you were saying, you're strong, I really was pretty fragile, as a human. Like it's like I had a lot of gust and energy, but there was also a lot of life force energy I didn't have, which was my creativity, right? And what I was supposed to do. So I would just continued a life of struggling, whether it was businesses, like I'd always have a job and a side job. I opened so much.
Hair salon, you opened.
All that was in the second marriage.
Oh, okay. So you had multiple businesses all throughout the second marriage. Yeah. You're always an entrepreneur.
And the third one, we had no money. I actually liked Hector because he was a musician and he had a white Ford station wagon with his drum kit in the back. And I thought, great, you don't have any money. I won't be controlled by money. Because
your dad was a musician as well, right?
My dad was a musician.
Before
and both of them stopped playing music for their families.
Wow.
Yeah, my ex-husband did that. Which
Hector did that as well.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
So
I end up in this third relationship, and I felt like I could finally breathe for a minute, and then I had Cassidy, our daughter. And
what year are we talking here?
1994.
This is 94.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she was born in 94.
We've moved up a little bit here.
We moved up a little bit. He keeps diving. The stories, this interview is going to last 12, 14 hours if we keep going. But yeah, and then I had postpartum depression. Yeah, I was on Wellbutrin for 7 years, from 30 to 37. And then because...
After you had postpartum depression after the third child.
You had
2 boys with your second husband.
Yeah.
You have 1 girl, Cassidy, with your third husband.
Right.
Hector, who you're with for many years.
Yes.
And after you had her in 1994, you suffered for the first time from postpartum depression. You did not have postpartum depression from your first 2.
No. So...
But then the doctors put you on Wellbutrin. You're on an antidepressant for 7 years.
7 years.
This is in your 30s, right?
Mm-hmm. And at that point,
and you've got the other 2 kids with you as well. When you leave the marriage with the divorce, they're coming with you.
Oh yeah. No, that's why I moved out of state, is because I was not leaving without them.
Oh, I get it now. Finally, the out of state thing makes sense to me. Okay, now you can take your kids back to the other state.
Yes.
Okay, we're crisscrossing the South here. It's a John Grisham novel.
Yeah.
Now what state are we in here with Hector?
We're in St. Louis.
Oh, we're in Missouri.
We moved moved again, Neil.
We're speaking from Texas today. Okay.
Did you know you got to just keep rolling?
Hey,
I told you.
yeah,
Gotta
just keep rolling. Just keep rolling.
rolling, man.
Just keep rolling.
That's what you got to do.
Just keep rolling.
Yeah. And any hustler knows this, like someone out there listening, like, you know who you are. Like, you just keep going. You just keep rolling. Because if you don't, all hell's going to break loose. You don't know what's going to happen. You're not safe.
You got to outrun it.
You got to outrun it. That's it. That's what you feel, is that you have to outrun it. Yeah, for sure. So I just kept rolling. So I'm on antidepressants, which was making me feel weird. So I started drinking at night, and then, also smoking some weed. I was just trying to balance myself. And I had an idea, and I always had ideas. I mean, I was always selling shit out of the trunk of my car.
Really?
Oh, yeah, literally.
What shit were you selling out of the trunk of your car?
Oh, I would buy stuff, and then I would make clothes at home, and then I would put them in the trunk of my car, and then I would go to a bridal salon and try to sell them.
Wow, you're still with the bridal salon. The first one is gone belly up. You cannot let go of the bridal salon.
I can't let go of the bridal salon.
Now you're making wedding dresses.
And tanning salons and beauty salons. So I would go, and I would make, these clothes. I would do that.
Wait. So this is where you first developed the ability to create relationship with tanning salons, beauty salons, and the industry, which may not have been called an industry at that time, of through the sort of 80s and 90s of the sort of boutique beauty industry, which for a guy like me, I'm 43, I live in Toronto. I've been in one twice in my life. But for you understand who these people are, how they tick, what motivates them, how they work, how they talk, how they interact, how they communicate, what values they have. You're spending decades on this. Yeah. No wonder Poo-Pourri was in 10,000 boutique beauty salons well before it was in Costco, Walmart. I've read that about your story. It's like you have a kinship with and I know they're wonderful.
I never connected that before. Yeah, so see what a great interviewer you are. I'm discovering so much about myself.
Well, I'm such a great interviewer that I started recording this when we had an hour left of tape. So we're running out of tape. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pause the tape, and then I'm going to save the file on my computer, and then I'm going to erase the file, and then I'm going to re-record part 2. And in between part 1 and part 2, Suzy and Neil are going to have tacos, and we will tell you about what we eat in just a second. Okay. We just took a pause for tacos.
Yeah.
And I had, you promised me the chicken wasn't going to be. No, they weren't. Oh, you thought, they were.
Did you think that was spicy?
It's, I'm making my heritage and background look bad.
I didn't think that was spicy at all.
Texas heat is a little different.
You gave me
I'm
sorry.
No.
I really
it was
thought it wouldn't be spicy.
They were delicious. I don't know what I was eating. There was some fish in there.
They were cold.
Really?
One was salmon, one was chicken, and one was something else.
Do you feel like wealth has changed your expectations in general in life? Like, do you want to, you kind of...
Want everything prissy and perfect?
No, but you thought the tacos were cold on the porch. We would press a button to deliver them to your mansion.
Well, I thought they were cold because we sat here talking for so long after they arrived.
Right. Well, we should have done is what Leslie and I do is we get takeout, we order it, we open it up, and then we heat it up. We heat it up in the microwave, and we nuke our fancy, Thai food or whatever. And honestly, Suzy, it's worth it.
I don't have a microwave.
Right, of course not. You sleep in a bed lined with a curtain that protects you from electromagnetic waves, right?
Yes.
And I'm not making fun of it. I'm learning from you. And they were delicious tacos. While we were eating them, I downloaded the file, and Ben showed up. Who was, so you're in the middle of a 72-day sprint right now. We're not going to go into this yet on this new AI concept you have, which I won't talk about because it's a new Genesis thing. And as you do that, what's interesting to me is that everyone who works on it just lives here. They just crash here. People come in and out. They walk around. There's your house is like this moving feast of almost like a. Or people are sleeping in different rooms. It's like you've built this slumber party life.
This is it. That's what people call it. They call it Suzy's slumber party. Yeah, that's.
I remember once I was coming down here 3 years ago. I think we were the first time we tried to have this conversation or something like that. And you're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just invited people over to my house for a foot painting workshop or something." You were like. I was like, I got dumped for a foot painting workshop at the Suzy. We haven't even got to the psychedelic conversation yet. We haven't even got to the psychedelics conversation yet. By the way, what's that water you're drinking while we talk here? You wearing a blue hat. I'm in my white hoodie. I've spent the day here with your 72-hour sprint kind of. I won't say more about it because it's a confidential business idea, but I've been part of your day here.
Yes.
We are in a church here in Dallas. You live in this church. You bought this church. You've decorated this church. You call it the House of Transformation?
Temple of Transformation.
Temple of Transformation. You run Poo-Pourri out of here, a gigantic $500 million. It's $1 billion enterprise is what it is. And you run that from here while also running other companies, spawning new companies. You are thriving. We were just about to go out for dinner before I was like, let's podcast now. And I can tell you drive a black Porsche. Is that right?
Yes.
You drive a black. You are living it. You are in the throes of all of it. Now, but for our listeners, you're talking to 250,000 book lovers, writers, makers, sellers, and librarians. They are spread globally. I'm sure many, if not all of them, have heard of Poo-Pourri at some level. And they are with me right now on the white couch in the Temple of Transformation, and they are into Suzy Batiz's live, and we are here to witness, to reflect back an energy that processing can do.
Yeah.
And it's only because of our existing relationship that I know that we're having this conversation. So I really, whatever you're feeling that you want to talk about, and whatever you don't feel like, that's fine.
So are we going to talk about the deuterium depleted water? That's where you started, wasn't it?
He's a very bad podcaster. He just interrupts himself.
Yeah, so I found out recently that the reason we age in the world is because there is deuterium, this heavy hydrogen molecule that's in our water. And if we didn't have this, that we wouldn't age. Yeah, so they make deuterium depleted water. This water is from Russia. They're building a factory, I heard, here in California. I'm not sure when.
Deuterium, and how much does a bottle of this cost? It's got a white label on it. It says light water in like a turquoise blue. On the front of it says deuterium depleted water, 5 ppm. Yeah. And there's even a tagline on it that says, use straight or as concentrate. And it has, I saw a product of Russia, manufactured in Russia, and 16.9 fluid ounces, 500 milliliters. And it says, for health and longevity.
Yes.
It even says that right on, like you could not make that claim here. But Russia,
You can do that.
You can do that.
Yeah.
So we're drinking this water.
Yep.
We're on your couch. Mm-hmm. We're in the Temple of Transformation. There is a stained glass all around us. Like, what year is this church?
It was built in 1890.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Dallas.
Wow. Yeah. Wild.
What made you want to live in a church?
I needed a place to expand into. Yeah. So I had no idea. I was living in a little 3-bedroom ranch-style house, and I kept saying, I need a place to expand into. I didn't mean as an enormous, but expansive energy. I wanted a mid-century modern that was all glass in the woods, right? But whenever I, through synchronicity, found out about this place, the minute I walked in, I was like, this is it. Like, I'm buying the church. My realtor even told me, it's in a bad neighborhood, it's a bad investment, and you're a single woman. This is not a good idea. I'm not writing this up. And I told her I'm buying it.
It's not safe, probably.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not writing this up. Your real estate agent walked away from you.
Well, no, I said, I'm buying it anyway.
You're happy to take the commission.
Well, she eventually did. But she initially said, don't do it. And I was like, yeah, everything in me says to do it. But it was just, and people often ask, like, how long did it take you to remodel the place? And I say, you should ask it how long it took to remodel me.
Wow.
Because as I was transforming this place I was being transformed. I was newly divorced. I was, my children were grown. I was empty nesting.
How old were you at the time, or what year was this?
This was 8 years ago.
8 years ago, okay. You're in your late 40s.
Our daughter had gone to, my daughter had gone to college. And it was during Poo-Pourri.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I had never not been a wife. I had not been like an active mother since I was 23 years old. So there's this new expansiveness that was inside of me that I knew I needed to express, and I felt like I couldn't do that in my old life. So I literally moved. I got divorced and moved. So I created new space. So I'm being transformed as this place was being transformed into a house, right?
Wow. And then for those that can't see it, because we're on a podcast, it's like a beautiful white ornate fireplace behind Suzy with like a giant rock. Is it like a quartz or something? There are succulents everywhere on like tables that are like kind of slices of stone on metal pegs. There's big carpets with real flowers. There's like stained glass everywhere. There's a slow spinning fan that looks like it has like kind of neon lights on it or something.
That's called a big ass fan.
It's a big ass fan. There are chickens outside.
Chickens? Yeah.
There's little gardens around here. There's a giant dining room table with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14 seats. That looks like kind of like a king's, queen's, like feasting room. Like you must have amazing get-togethers here.
I do. I always knew when I bought it that it wasn't just a place to live. It was a place to gather. It was a place to work. It was a place to play. And that's what I've used it for. Today we had the brainstorm upstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
My home office is 2,000 square feet, right? So
right.
It's
There's
great.
a whole table in there of like essential oils that it looks like your workshop.
Yeah.
And then I went to the bathroom. There's like 4 bottles of Poo-Pourri on the toilet. It's like I can only use one.
A Poo-Pourri buffet.
And oh man, can I tell you an embarrassing story?
I'd love it.
I didn't use it. And then there was a smell, and then I felt bad, and I just forgot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I cannot let anyone smell in this house.
No.
I'm in the house. Yeah, I know. I know.
Did you spray after?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it works after. Nobody knows that. It works after too.
Oh, we got a new brand name here.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's get back on track here. You are prescribed to treat your postpartum depression.
Yep.
After the birth of your 3rd and final child so far, Cassidy.
Yeah, hold on. I want to go back to that because while I think there are a lot more alternatives than antidepressants now, I would not say I'm an advocate. I do believe that they saved my life. The reason I'm not an advocate is I believe that they're overprescribed. And that
more than 10% of society's on antidepressants.
Oh, no. I think it's more like 50%.
Really?
Oh, yeah, no, it's a lot.
Wow.
And I remember being in the green bean aisle, distinctively remember when it must have kicked in, and I felt this. It was literally like I had my nose above water for the first time. Probably ever.
Really?
Probably ever.
So the antidepressants saved your life?
I believe they saved my life for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so can you describe that feeling? Like that is, because, for people, there's people listening to this, you say they're overprescribed, but there also might be people listening to this who have not had a diagnosis. So what were these sensations before and after, just so we can relate to this?
Oh, like I couldn't even get out of bed. Just to brush my teeth was the biggest effort. I had really collapsed, right?
Yeah.
Just from life and everything. And
Meanwhile, you're
just
trying to connect
anymore.
with your child at the same time.
Trying to, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was really, really difficult. And I did. And again, no one ever talked to me about therapy still. I don't even know if I was aware that there was therapy.
Right.
And
might not have been.
No. So they said, take this.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay. And I did. And I felt like I got a breath for the first time in probably forever. And I still kept hustling, man, still kept running because you got to outrun it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm working. I've got side businesses, side hustles.
What's going on here? What are you running now?
I was recruiting. I was recruiting at the time.
You started recruiting out of nowhere. This is a left field career change here.
Yeah. I met him working in a casino.
You're in the late 90s here.
Yeah, I met him working in a casino.
Met him?
Yeah, the guy that owned this recruiting firm.
Okay.
And he just said, hey, you have a great personality. We're looking for recruiters.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And it was a big job. Like I went from, owning my own businesses, which sounds glorious, but it wasn't. They weren't expensive businesses. I really struggled for so many years And this was like a job that was going to pay me money. So I became the top recruiter at that firm.
It's like your first job.
Yeah.
How old are you?
Well, it wasn't my first job, but it was my first real job.
No, your first hired by someone else job. It's your first non-entrepreneur.
I got hired when I was in retail in Memphis.
Okay.
So right after the divorce, I got a job, or right before. The minute I moved to Memphis,
But the way
I got
you
a
said
job.
it was a job with money.
Well, it was a job that had promise. I didn't make money when I was in retail. I think I made $16,000 a year, which is ridiculous. Trying to raise 2 kids, like, oh my gosh. And this was a job, and I was making like, I don't know, $50,000 a year.
Wow.
Right? Plus, it was on commission.
Wow.
So if
there's one thing Suzy Batiz can do.
Oh, let's go. It's like game on, right? You mean the number of people I place, I get paid $5,000?
$5,000 per person?
Oh, yeah. I was like, game on, let's go.
Well, what were you doing? How much
dialing for dollars.
No,
man.
but how'd you do it?
I would call, we did cold calling. So we'd call out to companies and say, like, hey, do you need someone? And they would call back, and I would recruit. And then once I recruit the person, you know what it is? It's like fishing. So what I would do is I would recruit the person to...
You recruit the person hiring first.
I would recruit them into looking for another job.
No, but you also recruit the company to hire someone.
Completely.
And then you're you're recruiting, you're cold calling the companies too?
Yes. That's why I say if you ever see anyone that has done that job, they've done both sides of selling.
Wow.
You get it?
Wow.
Because your product even has a mind of its own. It's a person.
Yeah.
It's wild. Imagine agents in Hollywood, God love you. But their product are people that have feelings, thoughts, emotions.
Right.
You get it? You're not selling a can of Pepsi.
Right.
Yeah.
So you call a company, cold call. Hi, my name is Suzy Batiz. I'm a recruiter. I was wondering, do you need anyone to work at the beauty salon, hardware store, office building?
No, they were bigger companies.
Okay.
Yeah, that we would recruit for.
And then they say, and then you start doing what? Like, there's no internet.
No.
Well, how are you finding people?
I'm dialing.
What do you mean dialing? Going through the phone book?
Oh, yeah. I would call XYZ Corporation. Can I speak to the person in controlling or accounting? And then I would talk to the controller, and then I would talk them into looking for another job. I said, hi, are you open to other opportunities? Or something like that. Are you happy in your job? Well, yeah.
Wow.
So then I would get them, and then I would sell them back to the company.
Well, oh
it's like fishing for people. See? So anyway, it was wonderful.
$5,000 commission per person, so you would place, and you were bankrolling now.
I was. And then I became the VP of a recruiting firm, but I still had ideas all this time. I would build websites, I would have ideas, and I would try to sell products. 90s,
right?
Huh?
Late 90s?
Internet's
new.
No, this was 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Early 2000s.
Well, it was late 90s. You're right. Yeah. Because, my bankruptcy was filed in 2001 after the stock market
so
crash.
Late 90s, 98, 99.
Late 90s.
I listened to a lot of interviews with you.
Okay. So I had this idea. I was the vice president of a recruiting firm, and I had this idea called Greener Grass. It was a website where a person's culture is matched to a company culture.
Right.
Okay.
Of course.
And I had psychologists on board. I had everybody. I was in the final stages of getting $5 million in funding.
$5 million in funding.
Oh,
now
yeah.
That's fishing.
In 99. I was getting it. Man, it was a really amazing idea. It was just 20 years too early. People would love that site right now. Someone go build it. It's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of like the Spark and OkCupid when it started. There was all this kind of matching. Like that was starting out originally.
Yeah.
But you did this in 1999.
Exactly.
Okay. And then
I didn't get the money because I was in final stages of getting it. And then the stock market crashed.
Yeah.
And I'd put all of our money in it, all my time and energy. Plus, thank God I didn't take that money. I would have hated, that. But yeah, and then, that's it. Like back down to my knees, flattened again.
Bankruptcy.
Another
bankruptcy.
Second one. Yeah, but this time, and you've heard this in interviews, like it wasn't even about being financially bankrupt. Like by this point, I'm spiritually bankrupt.
Ooh, interesting.
I'm really gone.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not interested in living. I'm not interested in really even going on. And if I hadn't had my children, I probably wouldn't be here. They really gave me a reason to live. Because, Yeah, I just had no desire to live, but I wasn't going to kill myself because I had kids at this point. So I was in a different position than when I was 21.
How old were the kids?
2023. They were probably around, oh, I know how old they were. They were 15, 14, and 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how were they dealing with all this?
Well, of course, Neil, I lied.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I told them that we had to move to be closer to Hector's work.
From where to where?
From Plano up closer to Richardson here.
Uh-huh.
And I told them that I covered everything up within my family.
Whoa, you didn't tell them about the bankruptcy?
No.
You didn't tell anybody about this?
No.
About Hector?
Yeah, it was just a huge point of shame for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I even felt before when I was bankrupt, it was really just me. And I had to deal with myself. I had my entire family. I'd let everyone down.
And all your money?
And all the money.
All your money.
Which I thought was everything, right?
And it was a good idea. Like it also, you had the promise also taken from you too.
Yeah.
You know, like it's almost like, you know, I hate to use such a lewd metaphor, but it's like you stop before the orgasm. Like it's kind of like you get, you know, it's like there's a huge, that is a horrible feeling.
Well,
you know?
Isn't that interesting that you said that? Because go back to being molested when I was 12 and my stepdad would fondle me. Do you think I was going to orgasm? Hell no. I held it all back, right?
Oh my God.
So you look at these patterns. This is why I'm so, fascinated with showing people that life is patterns. They're vibrations that you continue rolling on. They continue playing out until you change or shift the vibration. That's the way it works. Yeah. So
I really love your confidence when you say phrases like that because they are pretty new to me. I just want to confess that.
Wow.
You say life is vibrations, how it works. Yeah. And you just nod and you look away. It's like, okay, I'm just like with you. You know what I mean? Because you're confident about it. Okay. But now, you move up to Richardson. When you say here, Richardson, so we're in Dallas.
We're in Dallas. Yeah.
So Richardson's nearby here?
It's a suburb. Yeah.
Okay, so you move into the suburbs and you're Hector's work. Okay, and now you're spiritually bankrupt. You're financially bankrupt. You are, I want to say, I don't know, in your late 30s or something.
Yeah, I was 38.
You're 38.
Mm-hmm.
Aha! I hear you talk about this number. Sometimes 38.
Yeah. The 38 is and it was that point where I was just such a victim. Life had just happened to me. It had kicked me in the ass. Okay? Life had kicked me in the ass. And I was in this middle ground. My children, I wasn't going to kill myself. So I literally started looking for everything. I went to a hypnotherapist,
Wow.
my first therapy appointment. And I went to this hypnotherapist and I was telling him how awful my life is. And he said, you know what your problem is? You have no meaning. And I said, what are you talking about?
I said that to you?
Yeah. And I said,
you know what your problem is? You have no meaning.
Yeah. And I said,
Okay.
I have kids, right? Because that was the only meaning I had.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, I mean like a spiritual meaning. Like you have no meaning. You need to read this book. And that was Man's Search for Meaning.
So this guy grabs a book off his shelf and gives it to you?
Mm-hmm.
And it is your first formative book. Oh my gosh, I got my clipboard here. Oh, everybody, this is exciting. This is exciting. It is the first entry of the first formative book. The latest that's ever happened in the conversation, but it was important to lay that 1 minute bio, I think. For
the hour-long minute bio.
It is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl, first published in 1959. Cover is the stark, entirely black cover, typically, with a single candle flame at the bottom. My copy, which I've read and loved, which I have here, which is baby blue. It's a different cover. Mine says 12 million copies sold on the cover. Viktor Frankl lived from 1905, born in Austria, in Vienna, and died in 1997 in Vienna. He was a Jewish Austrian psychiatrist who founded logotherapy, a school of psychotherapy that describes a search for life's meaning as the central human motivational force. This memoir has riveted generations of readers with its descriptions of life in Nazi death camp and its lessons for spiritual survival. Basically, what happened was, if you haven't read this book, it's a bit clinical in how it's written, but it's like he loses everything. Like his I believe his wife, his kids, his even the book he wrote while he was in the Nazi. He lost the book. It was like he lost everything.
Yeah.
And the book is called Man's Search for Meaning. Someone who has a meaning can go on.
Well, that's why he wanted to survive, is because he wanted to tell everyone what he had discovered. It was a breakthrough in psychology. Because before him, they had believed that man was only in what are the aspects, the laws of...
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of needs.
It starts with, food and shelter, and it goes all the way up to self-actualization or transcendence.
Yeah, and he said, people here aren't having sex. One of them's like sex, right? He's like, that's the last thing on their mind.
People in the Nazi death camp are not having sex.
No, they're not doing anything. And he also noticed that the ones that didn't have anything to hope for, the meaning, that they would end up dying. And the ones that had something to go on for, that had that particular meaning, ended up living.
Depending on everything, many other circumstances, but there is,
generally speaking.
But what he was seeing as a psycho right in the prisons, losing everything himself, was this insight, this breakthrough.
Yes, and that's when I had realized and really came to terms that I remember had told God to fuck you many years ago. Remember when, my sister got molested, when my best friend was killed, I was just like, you know what, why would I want to even have this concept of a God?
Because when you grew up in Arkansas, it was like everybody was religious. Religion was a blanket that you couldn't see, the water that you swam in.
Yeah.
And so the fuck you God kind of thesis that you developed and articulated, that was also pretty radical and rebellious at the time. I'm also hearing this story as well from you.
Well, it also didn't make sense. When I was young, like I remember the preacher coming over to my house, because I did question, and I still question everything. I question so much. And I would say, so this guy lives in heaven and he loves me. They're like, yeah. And I said, but he's going to kill me if I dance. And they're like, yeah, you'll go to hell. And I'm like, but he loves me. And they're like, yeah. So I had kind of this natural...
Kill me if I dance.
Oh, yeah, because you were going to go to hell if you dance or wore shorts.
If you dance?
Yeah, dance.
Oh, man, I've been
it was Church of Christ.
I've been to a lot of churches where there's people dancing.
Oh, yeah, I know. I wish I'd have went to those. Yeah, so I didn't. So, that's what I realized is that...
You get the book. You read this book.
I read this book, and then
I'm just going to say, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Next quote, those who have a why to live can bear almost any how.
That's it. So what I had realized is I had really had no why to live. And I started searching for that. I started rolling through religions.
Rolling through religions?
Yeah, I started reading books. And, I read about, my kids always kind of joke, they're like, we were kind of all religions. You could choose one. Choose one if you fit. Because I started studying Buddhism. And I was a Kabbalist for a little while.
A Kabbalist?
Yeah.
What's a Kabbalist?
Kabbalah. It's
Kabbalah?
it's a ancient form of Judaism.
You're a Kabbalist.
Yeah, because Madonna was. So I thought, hell yeah, I'm going to check that out. So I started being a Kabbalist. And, I just I started to start barreling through religions. And
other religions that you tried on? Buddhism, Kabbalism,
Taoism. Yeah.
Okay, Taoism, Tao Te Ching being the formative text. Yes. James Fry, our previous guest in 3 books in chapter 25, talks about how that's one of his most formative books.
Oh,
he wrote Million Little Pieces. He used that when he was in rehab as his guiding force. He didn't identify with AA.
Oh, that's so nice.
So that was where he got his guiding force from, was the Tao.
Yeah, the Tao is the way.
So you were a Taoist for a while, but you left Taoism. You're like, the Tao is but not my way. And then where did you go after that?
So what happened was I started really, as I started going through religions, I started really getting honest that there was some divine force that I'm alive. and I'm living. And I started being really curious about that. And, but at the same time, I really didn't have, I was going through religions, but I didn't have I was still drinking a double bottle of Yellowtail every night.
1.5 liter of Yellowtail. Which varietal?
Chardonnays.
All white wine.
All white wine.
Chardonnay. So you're drinking a 1.5 liter of bottle of wine every night?
Every night. Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's a lot. That's like what, 12 glasses of wine?
Yeah. So while I'm having this realization, sort of, there still wasn't a big awakening in me. It was more I was fumbling around in the dark with these religions. And I had really stopped my will to live. I had given all my external power away. I wouldn't even dial a phone number without it being the right numerology.
Sorry, whoa. Where's this coming from now?
Yeah. I think it came from being so lost and out of control in life and not feeling I had any power and hoping and reaching for anything. We used to move my bed around every month to get the right feng shui direction. Wow. Yeah, like really had no access to any internal guidance system any longer.
What was Hector saying about all this?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that didn't go well. Yeah, he didn't like it. You know, he thought I was crazy, and I could say I was. You know, I had really lost my mind, not in psychiatric and need hospitals, but more that I had lost any control of my mind or any concept that I even had a mind.
So can I ask a question? Because this is now post 38.
Yeah.
Right? You're given Man's Search for Meaning.
40, yeah.
You begin this religious quest. Mm-hmm. You try on a lot of different religions. Mm-hmm. You're seeking, is like exploding out of you.
Yeah.
It's creating
I was desperate. I was just reaching, grabbing for any sort of lifeline that was available. I needed something to really believe in and to help keep me alive.
You were looking for meaning.
I was looking for meaning, and it was literally like ropes from a ceiling. I would grab one and they would fall. Like nothing could keep me hanging on.
It was like ropes from a ceiling.
Yeah, that weren't like, it was just like they would. I would pull them.
Jungle
and they would
vines that turn out to be snakes.
Totally, and everywhere I turned. And my friend was a feng shui master, and she had told me there's this one room in my house, like you cannot go in that room. That room is death and destruction to you. And I believed it. I avoided that room for a couple of years. And then I went into that room one day and got on my knees and told God to take my life. I said, you need to take my life because I'm done. Oh. And I knew because I had children that I wasn't going to do it myself. So I asked God to take my life. And
what do you mean? Take your life? What do you mean?
I wanted him to give me
a blow or something.
Oh, give me a disease. Yeah.
Oh, a disease.
I want to die. I want to die. So that was my plea to God. And then 2 days later, I'm taking my daughter to an acting lesson. And I'm in a bookstore, and I see Byron Katie's face, and it says, loving what is. And I remember just laughing yeah, right. I'm in a big pile of shit. How can you love what is?
And so you're in a Barnes & Noble or something like that?
Yeah.
And you're holding the book because I brought it for you, and I set it on the couch here, and you picked it up, and now you're looking at it again, and you're in the Barnes & Noble. You're in your early 40s, and describe this cover that you're holding for people. What's it saying to you?
Byron Katie's sitting there with this gaze that could just pierces through you, and
woman maybe late 50s, white short hair. She's got pearl earrings. She's got a hand up under her chin. It's kind of like a smirk almost.
And she has a smirk.
It's like she's wearing a black sweater. The entire cover is sepia tinged. It says "Loving What Is" in large, serify yellow font, and there's a subtitle underneath.
4 questions that can change your life. But I just remember just seeing "Loving What Is" with her face, and I remember she just kept staring at me.
Never heard of her before.
Oh, ever. And I keep looking over, and finally I went over and picked up the book, and I devoured it. Literally could not stop reading it. So I devoured the book, and then I looked online, and she had a workshop happening in a couple of months or 2 weeks or something like that. And I went to this workshop that was 10 days long.
Oh my gosh, you just popped out of it nowhere and went to
I
a
couldn't
10-day
even afford
workshop.
it. So I put half of it on a credit card. Remember, I didn't have any money.
How
and
much was
it was
it?
$5,000.
$5,000.
$5,000.
$5,000. And this is like 2004 or something.
2000, probably 3, yeah.
2003, 2004.
Yeah.
$5,000. You're bankrupt.
Yeah.
You're in a bookstore.
Yep.
You know, your dad got visions when you were a kid, and he said, I saw someone's hands on you and your sister. Tell me who it is. You get there's something going on here because you run over to this book.
Right.
It's gazing at you.
Yep.
Okay, Byron Katie, born 1942. She's 80 years old. She's alive today. Born Byron Kathleen Mitchell. She's better known as Byron Katie, American speaker and author who teaches a method of self-inquiry known as The Work, simply as The Work. And it talks about how she had, this poignant moment in her life after an increasing big depression. She sank into rage, despair, and thoughts of suicide. This is sounding familiar. One morning she woke up in a state of absolute joy, filled with the realization of how her suffering had ended. Katie's experience, as described in her book, Loving What Is that all suffering is caused by believing our stressful thoughts, by believing our own thoughts. This, she says, puts people into painful positions that lead to suffering, as she recognized in herself. So she describes this experience in this book, Loving What Is. A couple quotes. As long as you think that the causes of your problem is out there, as long as you think that anyone or anything is responsible for your suffering, the situation is hopeless. It means that you are forever in the role of victim, that you're suffering in paradise. She came up with these powerful 4 questions, and the questions are...
Is it true? Do you really know it's true? How do you feel about the belief, right? And then the third one is, who would you be without the belief?
Who would you be without the belief?
Yeah.
You pick up this book, you devour it. It doesn't sound like you're a reader much before Man's Search for Me. I don't hear books
No.
as part of your story here.
Still not.
But you devour this book. I devoured it too, by the way, a couple of weeks ago.
I devoured it. And just the concept.
And you're right. And the book is largely dialogue. It's largely dialogue of her live events. So it makes sense to me that you'd then want to go. But the $5,000, I mean...
It was a lot. And
you're gone for 10 days from Hector and the kids.
Yep. I put it on... I was desperate. Yeah. I needed meaning to live. Because up to now, I'm 40 years old. Life has pretty much sucked. Let's get real. Of course, there's amazing, wonderful things that happened in between. I birthed 3 beautiful children, that are the loves of my life. But other than that, it was wrapped in a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Let's get real. Then again, no
one's ever accused you of not having self-awareness, eh?
Exactly. It was... Yeah, so I devoured this book, and just the concept that my thoughts could be causing my suffering, and I was suffering, right? It's like, let's try that. So I put half of it.
I'll take 2.
Yeah, so I filled out one of those credit cards, the really high interest where you...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, you basically just got a credit card to pay for this thing.
Oh yeah.
You're like, okay, I've been bankrupt twice, let's just...
But I could only get approved for like $2,500.
Oh, you got 2.
So no, they financed the other half.
Oh, because financial aid kind of thing?
Yeah, it was a financial aid with them.
Oh, you applied to that?
Yeah, I did. So I put half on a credit card, half there.
You're paying $250 a day for 10 days. You don't have any money, but you do this. Where is this thing, by the way?
Yeah, it's in L.A.
You go to L.A.?
Yeah.
Wow. And so you're in like a hotel conference ballroom or something?
A hotel conference ballroom, yeah.
With Byron Katie, the Byron Katie.
Yes.
Right? Who at this point is like in her 60s.
Yes.
For those that don't know, she conducts I watched a couple on YouTube. Yeah. They're like captivating audience interactions, like pre-Tony Robbins, like just with her finger talking to a crowd in this like very plain, very unemotional tone. What's happened to you? Would you like to do the work? Do you want to come on stage and we'll do it, honey?
Yeah.
That's what's happening. Yeah. You're in this room for 10 days. Tell me about those 10 days.
Yeah. So I went in, and you have to partner with someone you don't know. So I didn't know anyone anyway, but I'm with this roommate, and you're just going through these processes. And what happened is, as she's interviewing people, you start seeing them Start looking at things from different angles. Yeah, I've learned later in psychology what you do is you're just repositioning. You're looking at different angles, different perspectives of the same situation. And what that happens, and I'll get a little technical here, but what happens in the brain with Byron Katie is when you ask the 4 questions.
Say them one more time.
Is it true? Do you really know it's true? How do you react when you believe that thought? And who would you be without that thought? And when you do that, it starts identifying a synapse in the brain that's being activated. And then she asks you 3 questions to turn it around. For example, I don't know, I've just popped in, Susan hates me. And is that true?
You can do one on me if you want.
Do you want to?
Sure.
Okay. So what belief do you have that's causing you suffering?
That cannabis is going to kill me.
Oh, so cannabis is going to kill you. Is that true?
Maybe.
Yeah. And can you actually know that it's true that cannabis is going to kill you?
I mean, no, I don't know that for sure. I mean, I don't know that for sure, obviously. You don't know no one knows anything for sure. It seems like a dangerous place to be.
Yeah. And how do you react when you believe that thought, that cannabis is going to kill you?
Yeah, I'm scared of that. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. So
I don't want the pain. I don't want the suffering. I don't want the early death. I don't want the lung cancer. I don't want fatherless children. I know these are fears and balloons, but I'm just painting the portrait. Yeah. It's like I don't want the disgust of everybody. Like, how could I not be stronger than this? How could I not just stop? Why don't I just stop if I don't want? Like, it's a weakness. It's like I feel like it's like I don't even remember the question, but now you got me going down this rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, is it true cannabis will kill you?
I don't know. It's not. I don't know if it's true or not.
Right, but that's how you react.
Yeah.
So who would you be without the thought that cannabis will kill you?
I feel a lot better thinking that. I feel like if I don't think that, then I don't know if I can think that, though. That's the thing. Like, I know I...
Well, let's just go with, who would you be if you didn't have that thought?
Yeah. Okay, so obviously you spent some time with Byron Katie here. And I know you worked for her after, right? So this is like, you went deep into her stuff. And I will say, for people listening to this, like, we're kind of experimenting here, and I appreciate the space to do it. Some people might regard this type of inquiry as sort of, I don't know if the word is like facile or like kind of trite or like sort of like, woo-woo, like pretty out there. Like, it seems like I can feel some resistance inside myself to like even going down this type of experimental conversation. I feel resistance about doing it because I'm like, well, I feel really almost dizzy going down this line of thinking. It feels different and dissonant from how I would normally think about things.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about in the bit, and I'll explain why it's not woo-woo. But I appreciate that. I felt the same way in the past. So how would you react if you didn't believe the thought, cannabis is going to kill me?
I would feel great. Then I get to have the life I fully want, which is the life I currently have, which is the life with a very, very beautiful, loving relationship with my wife and beautiful, loving relationships with my kids, wonderful connections with friends and with community, creating art and exploring curiosities through writing and demonstrating and creating art in the form of essentially theater, but it's public speaking, but like thinking about that as a craft and like crafting all these pieces of art, like a podcast and interviewing and this is I have great relationships with my parents and my in-laws, and like I just feel like very, very rich, like that. Then like, how would it feel without that thought? Man, yeah. I feel like I got it all. I feel really rich, for lack of better words, the true wide definition of that word.
Yes. Okay, great. That's amazing. So let's turn it around. What would the opposite of cannabis will kill me?
Cannabis will save me.
Yeah. And then give 3 examples on how that could be true.
In 2008 or 2007, in one of my very first times ever smoking weed, because read an article when I was 16 that alcohol and cannabis are destructive to the developing brain, and I decided that at age 16 never to have these poisons in my body before my brain was fully mature. And I started drinking at 21, which is the last year of college. And after I got my job offer from Procter & Gamble, I'm such a nerd, and I had 7 Smirnoff Ices that night. We can talk about that another time. And then with cannabis, you know, I was like in my late 20s or whatever, or mid 20s, and I went to a cottage with a bunch of my oldest friends, so I felt safe, and we were in a trusting environment, and someone brought a recipe printed out on a computer piece of paper for how to make weed brownies.
Yeah.
And I remember that we did that as a group that night, and on the back of that recipe I wrote down 1,000 awesome things. I have an idea for a blog, and here's the first 12 things I'm going to write about. And I'll tell you, Suzy, I wrote down fat baseball players. I wrote down the things I wrote about right at the beginning of that blog. It was the blog. I have equated in my life the fact that it has created some creative power in me. And so that's the true opposite thought. And that is a thought that is very strong now that you've re-unearthed it.
So the one example is the 1,000 awesome things on the back of the cereal box.
Yeah.
What's the second?
Yeah, back of a weed brownie recipe.
Yeah.
Well, second example of what?
Of how that opposite thought is true.
Oh, okay.
Cannabis will save me.
Well, here's the other one, is that I think I have a somewhat addictive personality, whether it's related to work, whether that's related to, you know, money, or whether that's related to success, or whether that's related to many other poisons. And I feel like, you know, we haven't gotten into the psychedelic conversation with you yet, and we will. But like for me, there's a potentiality that I could very quickly slide into. I know I could. Caffeine. I do not, and have not ever used caffeine in any capacity. I've never had really a tea or coffee. You know, same with alcohol. Aside from the 7 Smirnoff Ices, it just never took much hold with me. I don't really do. So I'm like, and the harder stuff interests me. I'm reading about so many things that I'm very curious about it, and I feel like cannabis is providing a little bit of a safe space for me to just hang out in. That is also keeping some doors that I don't feel like opening.
Okay, so number 2 was it saved you because it's a safe space, creates a safe space.
Yeah.
So what was the third example?
Okay. Well, you know,
how's the third way cannabis saved you?
I feel more loving when I've used cannabis, or when I've used it recently, even a few days ago or a week ago. I can conjure up those feelings of love more quickly. I recognize them. I feel them more deeply. A connection with nature, a connection with the energy of all things, a connection with birds, with life, with love. It does open up some loving parts of myself. So I recognize that. And I honestly, if I'm really honest, I'm like, I like that part of myself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So how do you feel now about that thought?
Oh my God. I think everybody should try this.
See?
I think I went there just because you created the safe space, and it's not about me. This is an interview of you, but it just happened because of how much you shared for and I had this spew because it's, you know, I just wanted to meet you where you've taken us. You know?
And what I love about that question is, and then you can even continue playing around with different iterations, turnarounds she calls them.
Like what?
So one turnaround that I thought of, I will save cannabis. You know, you start playing with it.
Yeah.
So what's happening actually in the brain, the reason this is not woo-woo, is because these synapses are formed.
Right.
And those are the beliefs.
Right.
And it's just pinging that belief back and forth.
Right.
But you start questioning it, and you do 3 times, that synapsis breaks, the synopsis, or however you say it. I'm from Arkansas. Told you that, right?
Tomato.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is it breaks. So that belief doesn't have the power anymore. There's other things in there. Cannabis could kill me, but also could save me. And then what happens is that original thought starts being deconstructed a little bit.
Wow.
Because there's so many versions of reality, right? It's just which angle are you looking at?
There's
so
no
it allows
reality.
you, right? So it allows you to look at things from different perspectives.
Wow. And she does so with, there's an element of I've seen the, you know, so she go to the 10 days.
Yeah,
So you go to the 10 days. You're in a ballroom in LA. And then what happens?
Yeah. And then she just starts asking people these 4 questions.
Wow. And you're just watching this happen?
Oh, I'm watching people unwind satanic ritual trauma.
Gosh. Wow. Satanic ritual trauma.
Yeah.
What else is coming out?
Anything. She has
Like
you.
what?
She has you. I don't think I'm supposed to say exactly what they do at that 10 days.
Okay.
But it's an entire
I don't
workshop.
think it's been 20 years. I think you're probably
think
out
so?
of well, it's been long enough.
I mean, one of the things is she invites people, if you want to stand up and tell the room what you're most ashamed about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And,
It's like what Frank Warren does.
Yeah.
I guess in chapter 2,
so it's like this.
Post Secret, he has people come up, stand up at the end and tell their secrets to the audience.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So this is what she does. So she takes you through this where you're just really getting a lot of material to do the work on. And then she's pulling that out of you, answering lots of questions, filling out worksheets. And one of them is called Judge Your Neighbor worksheet.
Judge Your Neighbor.
Yeah, because her whole
I think
thing
I did this
is,
in the book. It was in the book, this one.
Yeah, because it's about your neighbor is a projection, right? So what are they projecting that, is triggering to you? So when you judge them and then you start flipping all of that around, your judgments start also going away. And the whole thing is, so I walk in there taking this double bottle of, Yellowtail a night.
You got to buy 10 of those for the trip.
I did not think I had a drinking problem at all. It never dawned on me. I didn't go there to quit drinking, but I walked out of there 10 days later and didn't even touch any amount of alcohol for 10 years.
What?
Zero desire. Just left my body. Wow. But what happened was I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a thinking problem.
Oh.
I was letting my thoughts actually create my suffering.
I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a thinking problem. I was letting my thoughts create my suffering. But some people would say all we are is our thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. But you might want to start questioning whether those thoughts are true.
So a destabilizing place to go.
Exactly. So that's what I did. So I did the work and, worked in her camp as a volunteer, I'll say, for about 4 years. I was
traveling
immersed.
Around with her?
Well, yeah, whenever she'd do a workshop, she would say, if you're a volunteer, you can come.
You're like signing people in, giving them their badges,
Totally.
But you get to be in the room.
You get to be in the room.
So you basically go through how many of these 10-day sessions?
Oh, so many.
Really?
Yeah. And
so
then,
but
I also worked on
I
also worked on her hotline.
Wow.
So when she had a hotline and you would volunteer, so I would volunteer because what I knew is any question that was coming to me was a question for me.
Right.
And
you also saw the drinking people on stage with so many people with alcoholism, right?
Oh, everything. I mean, it was really huge amounts of suffering. And I also saw how many people got free.
Wow.
And I'll tell you
Did it work on everybody?
It works on people that are willing to question.
So how many people are in the room for this? Like 500 people?
I don't know. I didn't count.
She can't take
Probably 300.
She can't take everybody on stage, so a lot of people
300 to
just sit and
400.
listen for 10
Oh, yeah.
minutes.
Most people aren't going to have the courage to get up there, right? It takes a lot of courage.
Especially in front of everybody.
Yeah. And I broke free from my molestation. And I'm going to talk about this because some people, I have mentioned it a little bit before, and people get triggered without the context. Is I was doing the work on molestation, and
So this is the first 10 day you went to?
Yeah.
You went on stage?
Went on stage.
You went on stage the first time?
Oh, yeah. Like I was
Wow.
desperate.
Yeah.
Like I was walking out of there.
So you're going on stage, you're in front of everybody. You don't know anybody in the audience.
No.
And take us through what happens.
Yeah. And I'm reading my sheet about the sexual abuse. And she looks at me and she says...
And sorry, what's the thought? Remember, is it true? What was
I
the
don't
thought?
remember the exact thought because I was reading her the whole worksheet.
Yeah.
And she just looks at me and she said, "Did you say no?" And I was like, I didn't.
Did you say no? What the hell is that coming from?
It comes from...
That's not one of the 4 questions.
No.
She looks at you and says, "Did you say no?"
Yeah.
But you were like 9 years old.
I know.
No, you were like 11, whatever you were. But
I was 12. But
you're a kid, though. You can't put that on a kid.
She wasn't putting on a kid. She just asked me a question. But what happened inside of me was I got to see the little girl that knew not to go across the room, that didn't say no, that knew this was wrong, that knew this was happening. Do you see what I'm saying?
She just gave you an alternate lens of the whole scene for a second.
Right.
And then in that little wedge of, I say resilience is the ability to see that little sliver of light right between the door and the frame after you hear the latch click.
Yes. And remember, I want freedom. I go to this workshop because I want free. So when she said, did you say no? It was like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, no, I didn't. Immediately, I felt a sense of empowerment from the ownership that I can now say no. Do you see? I mean, there was many evolutions of this, but I saw this glimpse of insight.
You saw there was some agency that could have had.
That's it. I developed some agency, and I was like, oh, I didn't say no, and it was wild for me to think about. And then I got to fantasize what would have happened if I would have said no. So I'd imagine being the little girl standing in the middle of the room, and I've done this in therapy, a few times, but of just what if I would just scream, no!
You can yell.
Right?
Yeah.
No!
Yeah.
What if I could have done that? Then I started getting my power back in the most unlikely ways, right? Because I was no longer willing to accept this victim story. I knew that had I been raised right, had I been raised in the right conditions, I'm not dismissing any of that.
Right. You're not saying you should have, could have, or would have. You're saying you just saw a story that you had never heard before.
No. And that story became empowering. So the more I went through trauma after trauma, I remember I was working with her again on the physical abuse. And she said, in the midst of all the questions, we were unraveling, or I was doing the work on, and she said, so he hit you once? And I said, yes.
Sorry, we're talking about who now?
The second husband, the physically abusive husband.
This is with Byron Katie.
Yeah.
So you're on stage a different time here.
I'm on stage a different time.
At a different session.
No, same session.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you're on the stage. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm desperate.
Okay. No.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm telling you.
I'm not.
Like you're talking about a woman for freedom. I'm like breaking out of prison right now. I'm not joking.
Right.
This for me was breaking out of prison.
No, I'm not. My surprise at you being on stage a second time was not about in any way any kind of assessment or judgment. It was just an honest surprise that you're on stage again.
Oh yeah, I'm on stage again.
You're going, as you said, I've got a pretty long list.
I've got a really long list.
Okay, I'm going back on day 2.
Oh hell yeah!
I'm going to elbow out everybody else here.
Oh yeah!
Get me back up on that stage.
Oh yeah! I'm desperate. Like I'm going to come out of here free. I just every little unraveling, I just wanted more and more and more. I wanted to keep questioning everything. Of course,
it must have felt so nutritious,
freeing.
It was like getting like a splash of Gatorade at the end of running a huge freaking race.
Yes,
it's like
with radical accountability.
Wow,
right?
Interesting phrase. What's that mean? Radical accountability.
Well, to take accountability for one's sexual molestation is kind of radical.
Well, in fact,
right?
In fact, I will say, and we're gonna get to the second therapeutic stage section in just a second, but there, for people listening, I just want people to know this because I want to give some context here. The more context, the better. Conversation matters, as our mutual friend Rich Roll would say. Guest in chapter 45, by the way. On Goodreads, this book has 22,353 reviews. Okay, did you hear? 22,353 reviews, more than all my books put together by far. This is a huge book, but the top 3 reviews overall are all 1 star. And the number 1 review is from Emily, who is listed as a Goodreads librarian. She's got 933 reviews on the site, and she includes this paragraph. There were some disturbing blame the victim implications towards the end of this book when Byron Katie applied the work to situations involving abuse, incest, rape, etc. For example, quote, there's no such thing as verbal abuse. There's only someone telling me a truth I don't want to hear. No, Byron Katie, verbal abuse is real. It is abuse, not necessarily grounded in truth, and no, it, quote unquote, shouldn't happen. It's also completely inappropriate to ask a woman to identify what, quote unquote, her part was in the sexual abuse her stepfather committed on her when she was 9 years old. This is just wrong. This is the 1-star review. So I want to just throw that into this conversation so we can soak into this for a second.
Yeah, I would say she doesn't want to get rid of her story. Yeah, I was willing to get rid of my story. I wanted freedom over any story that I had.
Wow, like wiping the slate.
I was wiping the slate clean.
Wow. And
all I know is it was cleaning.
Because you felt it.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you have the courage, despite quote unquote like popular conviction, to tell you that your story now, today, in 2023, is quote unquote wrong. You're telling this story because it's your truth, and this truth that you feel is what you felt, and it's how you experienced it.
It's how I started finding freedom.
It's how you started finding freedom, and so then you go on stage a second time.
Yeah, and she says, I was talking about sexual abuse, the physical abuse, and she said, did he hit you? And I said, yeah. And she said, and you stayed? And I said, yeah. And she said, and did he hit you again? And I said, yeah. She said, and you stayed? She said, and did he hit you a third time? I was like, yeah. She was like, and you stayed? And I was like, yeah. And she said, if I had a lion here, and if I put my hand in the cage and it bit me, I'd think twice about putting it back in the cage again. But if I do it the second time, and then if I do it the third time, whose fault is it after that? And I was like, oh my God, I stayed. Again, not dismissing why, my programming, I wasn't raised a strong, independent woman.
Well, you said an hour ago, I didn't think I could. Yeah, I didn't think the optionality of the world was not presenting. Like you had never seen that. You lived in a water where people did not leave despite domestic abuse. You probably were surrounded by domestic abuse as a child as well, consciously or subconsciously, just given what I'm hearing from you.
For sure. So I didn't leave. And again, I started finding power, right? Not, oh, whoa, the world is against me. It's like, hold on. I didn't leave. I could have packed my kids up in the middle of the night and left. And again, yes, I was terrified. I was terrified he was going to kill me. So what felt better for me in the process, so I literally went from one world to another world with this book. I went from complete victim, life sucks, life's against me, I've been given a bad hand, I've been dealt a bad hand, to 10 days.
God take me. God take me. Take my life.
More than once, to 10 days later, I walk out happy for the first time in my life.
Wow. And you said the antidepressants got you above water, but you would not describe that as happy.
Oh, no. It was covering up the shit. That's my problem with them.
Interesting.
I felt I could breathe.
Okay.
And that's about
You're
it.
Above water. That's a great. I think that you said
I'm above water.
I'm apologizing here. I've been mansplaining.
No, you haven't. But I do want to go back and say I'm not a fan of antidepressants now, and I will say that because I do believe that I believe that they suppress you. Right? They suppress your desires. Lots of people have sexual trouble. You have to think when something clogs the drain like that, it's going to do a lot of other things. Also, they're not very kind on the brain with serotonin. Like we could go on and on and on into that.
Yeah.
But it's a way more serious drug than I think.
You're talking all antidepressants? So what do you say to somebody?
I'm not an expert in all of them.
Well, what do you say to somebody that's got to, that needs antidepressants? There's a lot of people listening that like them.
Well, it depends on what need is. Have you done therapy? Have you worked with a therapist?
Not widely available. Totally financially inaccessible. I need to live my life. This is helping me.
Well,
I like them. Thank goodness for my pills.
Yeah, Byron Katie's 4 questions are free. You can look on her website. You can download Judge Your Neighbor worksheets.
Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of excuses, and I get it. I don't mean excuses. There's lots of reasons why, and you got to get committed to wanting out, and then you'll start finding a way.
Wow.
That's it.
That fire, though.
Or you can just stay in.
Well, you say outrun it, but also there's a. It's in your eyes now. The way you're looking at me is, I will positively describe it as piercing. I will positively describe. I will, because you're looking at me. You're like, the questions are free. The way you looked at me right there, it's just like, you're like, snap out of it.
Yeah, I'm really over in my own life, even me making excuses and me being okay with living a not amazing life. Like it's just, I can change that. And that's what I want people to know. So I'm not going to encourage the victim story. I'm not going to encourage that you can't get out, because you can get out. It's just, how willing are you to do that?
Wow, really?
And I was willing.
Uh-huh.
And I've been willing. You know that. I've done hundreds of psychedelic journeys. I've done 20 years of hardcore therapy. I've done my workshops.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking Lord willing.
I know.
Like that.
I know. And we're gonna get to to
Okay.
Peru in the psychedelic workshop or therapeutic journeys in a minute here. But here's what I'm gonna say on this one. So you go up there twice.
Right.
The first 10 days. Then you like it so much, you come back to your 3 kids you haven't seen in 10 days.
Yeah.
Hector's like, so how was it, honey? You're like, I'm a new person?
Yeah, it was obvious. I sat around crying.
So what did this do for you?
I cried for about 3 years.
Before?
No.
After the workshop?
Yeah, cries of gratitude.
Oh.
Dude, I was I was probably, right before Poo-Pourri, I was probably in a state of what people could call enlightenment, because I had nothing but just tears rolling out of my being. From just being the contrast.
Yeah.
From the 40 years of those stories, and me carrying the weight of those stories, and those are generational as well, right?
It's interesting that you said tears of gratitude. I love the attaching of the word to it, and I'm also just smiling and thinking about you with these 3 years of crying and processing, and like chapter 101 we talked to Daniels, and Daniel Kwan said, crying is our body's inability to articulate what it is feeling, meaning that it's kind of post articulatable emotion.
Yes. Wow. I love that. It's true. And I just couldn't help it. I just had gratitude, like so much gratitude of, it's just, life started making sense again. I had meaning.
Can I ask what this did for your relationship with the rest of your family here at this point? So you sounds like they see someone come back as just a different person.
Yeah, my daughter was.
Is your husband
my dad?
We got a credit card bill?
Well, my son says, what do you say before my? He doesn't call it a spiritual collapse. He kind of says that. I think it was pretty. I'm not saying I was completely stable. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't crazy, but I didn't have any desire to work or make money or do anything. I literally just wanted to. Picturing
Bambi with the wobbly leg standing up for the first time.
Yeah. So I think it wasn't so great for them. You have to think this is probably a 180. It's at least a 90. It's at least a 90.
Mom's back, and she's extremely fragile. Like
extremely fragile. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost like you were born.
It was. I felt completely, reborn. It's literally like I popped from one entire universe into another one.
Okay.
So whatever you call that transition, that's what happened in that 10 days. And I got my life back.
Wow.
I got my original state of being life.
Wow. I got my original state of being. You were like a blank slate.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And and I actually wrote a course called Inside Out, How to Create a Life You Desire by Going Within. Because I knew where abundance resided. I knew where happiness resided. And I knew it was internal and that it was not something external. Because I was rich.
What do you mean?
I was rich inside.
Oh,
like I had no desire for money.
Bankruptcy was. Is that what you mean, rich?
I mean, I was rich I was abundant with joy and happiness. Money had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, you were like self-actualized.
Yeah, and I guess what I need to say before, I thought that money and wealth or any kind of success was going to make me somebody. And I was going to be worthy and finally be happy. Once I got to this, I was going to be happy. And what happened is I was stopped in my tracks. The the slate was rubbed clean. And then in that absence of those stories was just gratitude and happiness and joy. So I wrote this course. And
what do you mean not many people at this point, and what do you mean wrote a course? Tell me more. What's the course?
I wanted to teach people where I got.
Wow.
And I knew that it was from a few things.
It's like the reciprocity thing kicked in. You got so much that you wanted to suddenly give.
Yeah. And I taught it to 5 women, this course.
Yep. Well, you taught it. It wasn't just you wrote it.
They didn't finish it. They didn't finish it, and I didn't finish writing. We had, I looked back through the binder, and I still have it. But
oh wow, that's an interesting.
But what I realized in that moment, I remember having a conscious thought like, "Oh, I don't have any money, and I'm teaching about abundance." And I am not joking, Neil. This has never been said in a podcast, by the way. 6 months later, the idea for Poo-Pourri came in. And I believe that Poo-Pourri has been a catalyst so that I can be talking to you right now in a larger audience and sharing the information I wanted to share. It's like when you get a great recipe for a cake, you can't wait to share it with everybody. This is it. It's like I've found a recipe to freedom and happiness. This was my recipe. You can tweak it however you want. But I got to share it, man. I just want to. I don't have to. I want to. It's not about trying to change the world or heal the world or any of those really hard stuff. When people are like, I got to change the world, I'm like, that's a big job.
Everyone wants to change the world. It's like
that is a big job. But
you need meaning, but it could be just like run a nice bakery. You don't have to change the world. You
just
have to
sharing what you found, right? And I'm a natural sharer. Didn't I just give you a nootropic up there? I shared with the depleted water. Like
what's a nootropic?
The nootropic. Didn't you take that this morning for your brain?
No.
Oh, yeah, you did the little powder?
No, I never
you
took
missed it.
No,
okay.
I just came here off the plane.
Yeah, I'm taking this really hard to find nootropic called Jubs. If anybody can find it, please message me on Instagram.
Okay, side note.
It's really hard to find.
We're going to put a pin in whatever that was for a second. But yes, I did drink the $30 bottle of Russian water.
Yeah, but these are basically...
I'm not sure I'd go on the record as recommending it yet. Yeah,
you don't feel younger?
So slightly...
You don't feel younger? I feel like the past 8 hours didn't even go by.
Slightly inaccessible luxury good that I don't know if I want to align myself with here. Exactly. I felt bad taking a bottle, a third bottle.
I got $100 worth today. But anyway, so I'm a natural sharer. Like I want to share. I share. I share my home. You were just saying that. I share my life. Like I love to share. And I feel like I've somehow in the most graceful, clumsily way found my way to information that I want people to know.
Which is
so that they can alleviate their suffering.
What is the information you want people to know to alleviate their suffering?
That your internal world creates your external world and you can shift it and change it. That's it. Your internal environment can change everything around you. It's the way quantum physics works, and we can get into that in a whole other episode. But, we're learning more today that our reality is formed. It's not all stable. It's, based upon our thoughts and beliefs. And again, this is getting a little woo-woo, but there are actually quantum physicists that talk about, whether this couch even exists.
I'm not, and I don't want to use that term derisively anyway. I think woo-woo in general in our society has got some cultural stigma. Like, like startup bros. Like we do this, and this is what we do. We label and we add pejorativeness. So I'm not adding that here.
Okay,
I don't.
Good.
It's just I want to hear we're talking because this is a podcast about 3 formative books, and holy cow, were these books formative? And and I am like my jaw is dropped at this story. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard a story like this. Of course I haven't. It's yours, and it's wondrous, and we haven't even got to
the good part.
We haven't even got to the third act is yet to be played out here. But I did allude to the black Porsche, and we're living in, there's something, it's clear that you're speaking from a place of what I think, not just financial, but you're number 83 on the Forbes list, ahead of Serena Williams with a quoted net worth in 2020 of $240 million. That's financial abundance. And having said that, it means nothing.
Nothing.
It means nothing in and of itself.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's come from this gestation inside you that is like a flower just blossoming like it's never blossomed before.
It has. And that's what I know. I know that whatever you're suffering from, you can get free tools. You can question it here. You can go to therapy. You can really change what I call internal programming, right? You have to understand my ability to not say no was a program. I was programmed to say no as a child. So when I start questioning all those beliefs and working on those, I get back to my core agency that I was built with, that every organism is built with.
What do you like? Not just that, but you're basically rewriting cultural history.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, like, and by the way, just to add in here, like a little bit, a sprinkle from my side here is, in East Indian culture, which I'm from, no divorces, no speaking publicly about mental health, no concept of mental health existing. Therapy certainly would not be, allowed. Right. There's lots of stories in this culture that I come from as well that I'm, I hope to be helping with a little bit, tiny bit, and hope my kids will continue as we as a species in this day and age of AI and this day and age of what does it mean to be a human. We have to figure our stuff out quick. That's what's happening. We got to do it. We have to do it. Mm-hmm. And because we are gonna live lives of meaning and purpose, and for us to have a great and wonderful future of humanity, these are the things we have to talk about. We have to talk about these things.
Yeah. As I was telling you during our break, I believe it's the secrecy that keeps us sick. Actually, Freud said secrets keep you sick. Think how many secrets that we have going on. One of the things in my Live OS course I do is bring some of those secrets out of the closet, and what do we need to clear up and make amends for.
You would love Frank Warren.
Oh, really?
Postsecret.com. He's collected over 2 million handwritten secrets on postcards for the last 20 years. It's been exhibited at the Guggenheim. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But just that concept of freeing your secrets.
Freeing it. Because they do, in my experience, they made me sick. Mm-hmm. And sick in my mind. Mm-hmm. I do believe that develops eventually into some body sickness as well. Mm-hmm. Disease, dis-ease in the body.
Dis-ease?
Yeah,
I've never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Dis-ease, not ease.
Yeah.
You're not ease.
You're not at
you're
ease.
hard.
You're not at ease. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do believe that that's going to manifest as something in the body.
Okay. You're in your early 40s.
Yeah.
You're like a Bambi on fragile legs. You were crying for 3 years, tears of gratitude. You have 3 young kids, or actually maybe they're more like teenagers now, and you start to write this course because you want to give back what you've learned, and you call this course, what was the name of it?
Inside Out.
Inside Out. You find 5 people. What are you putting up posters on the street post here? What's happening?
No, I was actually doing the work with a lot of people in the community. So I would, a friend would want to do it. So I sort of had a group of friends.
Okay,
that we're also on a path of self-actualization.
There's a story in and of itself in that concept that you were doing this in the community in living rooms. Like, you look at where we're sitting and people are coming in and out. People are crashing here because they're doing, they call this place Suzy's Slumber Party. There's still something there about that. Well, we're not going to open that up right now. But here's what I'll say. Then the part that we haven't opened up yet is you then volunteer with Byron Katie. You say, I'm doing phone calls. What are you doing the phone calls from your house?
Yeah.
So you were like one of the first ever nomadic teleworkers?
Yeah. So they would have an 800 number and they would direct it to whoever's, volunteering, and I would answer the call and I would say hello.
And people would say,
what are you doing the work on today? And they would tell the thought, and then I would just ask them, just like you, the questions.
No way. You did the work with people over the phone? It was like $1.95 a minute?
No, it was free.
Free?
Yeah, her hotline, if she still has it, is free. That's what I mean. There is access.
So Byron Katie today is 80 years old. She puts out a weekly podcast that's free. She also has a weekly webinar on her website, her active, popular, well-trafficked website. This woman's got over hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. So she's active today. And every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, she's still at this day and age. And I know I don't mean a judgment by the fact that she's 80, but she's doing the work online, and it's $5 to $50. You can pay what you want, but the $5 is the minimum. And so there's a business model still happening here. And
she's a businesswoman, and she's enlightened. And I'll tell you, this woman will start at 7 a.m. and do the work till 10 or 11 at night, and she never wanes in energy.
What?
At all.
Why?
At all.
It's because it's coming through her or something?
It's because it's coming through her.
Did I hear that she went blind?
Oh, I think she had cataract surgery. I don't know. I haven't kept up with her. She lives in Ojai, where I'm living a little now.
Well, I thought after spending all this time working for you guys would become like,
oh, no.
going on a road trip together or something.
No.
I wonder if she knows how highly you speak of her stuff.
Oh, I should tell her. Yeah, I bump into her every once in a while in Ojai.
I mean, there we go. You just did the work on me, and I felt different than reading the book. So, maybe join the webinar or listen to the podcast if you're resonating.
Yeah, it really is. And there's also communities that you can log on to. You can go and look at the work, and they will pair you with someone.
It's incredible that she's doing this.
So you guys can just question each other, and all of that is free.
Wow.
Like, you don't have to go to the workshop. You can literally just keep questioning your thoughts for free.
So now you're trying to teach this course. You got the five people in your community, which I think in and of itself is an amazing thing. You've got people in your community that are meeting in like a living room here, and then you realize I can't do this because it has to come from a place of abundance. And then you just said, and then 6 months later I had the idea for Poo-Pourri. So what is the string you're trying to tie to that?
I do believe I created the desire or the belief that I needed to be successful. Again, wasn't this the whole trick I was on before? I thought that I needed to be successful so that I could, people would listen to me. Huh? And I thought, I haven't made any money. I'm talking about abundance. So then the idea for Poo-Pourri
Better go make some money.
Better go make some money.
Kind of overshot that a bit.
And what I also know is I do believe, had I even questioned that thought, I could have possibly created even another reality that, who knows, may or not have been greater than what it is, because I can see where the belief that was holding me back then was I didn't believe people would listen to me if I hadn't proven that it was possible. And all I'm saying is I'm not sure that was true. And that was my belief at the time.
So if you had unpacked that, if you went to 10 days, then what would have happened?
I could have just been Byron Katie without Poo-Pourri. I mean, I don't know, I mean, who knows where you would have went.
So you come up with the idea of Poo-Pourri. I'm sorry, but how did that happen?
Yeah, I was at a family dinner party, and there was a small house, and it had one bathroom. And Hector's family's Hispanic, and there's lots of them, and we were joking about bathroom odor. And my brother-in-law said, can bathroom odor be trapped?
What was the jokes, first of all?
Just how awful it smelled, right? It was just horrible. And they were like, oh, my God,
So you're at the family party, and then everyone's joking, and then what? Tell me, give me.
Yeah, he said something like, can bathroom odor be trapped? And I swear I saw it. I've always been into natural things, and not always, but at least, in my 30s.
You've been in a lot of salons.
I played with essential oil in a lot of salons, you're right, exposure. And I used to always make like spritzers, like motivating spritzers, right, with citrus oils. And I would make relaxing sleeping ones, but I never thought of selling them.
Sorry, just to say, this is a pretty unusual hobby. Not many people are making their own home spritzers. Pillow sprays.
One of the benefits for growing up without a lot of money was that I never thought about buying anything. So I would make it. So I'm a maker. That's what I do. I make stuff, right? My natural impulse isn't, I'll go see if that's available to buy. I'm like, how can I make it?
You and our mutual friend, Jonathan Fields.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He's a maker, too.
Who gave me a question that I'm going to get to later, for you.
For me? Ooh.
Just for today.
Okay, good. That's a yummy one. So
you made your own air freshener. You made your own pillow. You made stuff. I made it. You made everything.
Yeah, it took me. I made everything, and I saw it.
Did you make clothes too?
Oh, I made clothes. The reason I got a job when I was 15 is because I wanted to buy clothes at a store. Like literally, I would get
for the first time.
Well, I mean, we would get clothing for birthdays or like a sweater from my grandma from JCPenney's on Christmas, but I wanted
a sweater from my grandma's from JCPenney's for Christmas.
Yeah.
So you wanted clothes, you got a part-time job. So now you flash forward to the moment of you saw. I swear, Neil, I saw it.
What
do you mean you saw it? What was in your head? What flashed through your brain? Well, what did you see?
I felt it in my body. It's like the room kind of went. I've gone back and analyzed this to the 4 signs of resonance, I call it, or an alive idea.
Which are?
And one of them is I got to chill up my arm and my leg. It happens at my left arm and leg.
Wow.
And then the room kind of goes into high definition, right? Everything became crystal clear.
Wow.
Like I saw I could do that with oils. And the other two that I've determined are the idea keeps coming back around.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And the fourth one is synchronicity.
Wow.
But
So
at that moment, I had this moment of just like, oh my God, I can do this. And he even said like, oh, you think so? You know? And it took me 9 months to actually create it. And I was not looking to make money. I know I sort of picked up the pieces later, like you're doing so beautifully in this podcast, but I was like, hold on, I said people aren't going to listen to me until, right?
Yeah.
And what I did that I don't tell a lot of people, this is the first time this has ever been released publicly. And someone actually told me, don't tell anybody this because they'll know how to start their own company or do it themselves. And I don't know why, I've just never shared this. But what I did is I started reaching out to essential oil experts. And I asked them if you wanted to control malodor, which bathroom odor is M-A-L, malodor, how would you do that? And they started sending me a laundry list of the oils they would use. And then I started finding similarities. Like, hold on, all these people said lemon. All these people said this, right? And I just started mixing based on that. And it was really trial and error. And I could have done it way sooner if I had had more subjects that were pooping.
What do you mean?
Well, I could only test it when people pooped.
Yeah, but didn't you poo
so
every day?
So it's not like I could test 24 times a day. You know, my family, my ex-husband pooped, thank God, 3 times.
Okay, that's the first time that quote's ever been said on this podcast on 3 books. Thank God my ex-husband pooped 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then
that
my
is
kids
hilarious.
were annoyed with me.
Yeah.
My family and friends.
How much time were you spending on this per day or per week?
Oh, the amazing thing is, that's another one, is that the idea keeps you moving forward. So again, I was so adamant to create what I saw that I just kept going, and I was mixing and mixing. No one in my life thought it was a good idea. No one. They thought I was completely crazy. And I tell entrepreneurs this a lot, that people can't see your idea. It's your idea. It's never been created. It's hopefully your idea is something that's original. It's never come into physical form or into our reality. So they can't see it.
Yeah.
I spent many years trying to get people to see my idea, but I just knew this, and I knew it could happen. So it didn't matter that no one believed it. I knew it. And I created it. And then one day, after hundreds of bathroom, poopings, my husband at the time, walks out of the bathroom, Hector, and he says, we're going to be millionaires.
So you're putting your nose in the toilet here?
Well, that's what he says, because I used to say at market, well, he was the tester, and he'd go, yeah, but she was the sniffer. Which job would you have wanted? So he would go poop.
You are I know you are a highly sensitive person, as is Leslie, my wife, and so I'm familiar with this concept of 20% of society is highly sensitive. They're very sensitive to odors. They're very sensitive to smells. When I first started dating Leslie, she came to my apartment and she's like, "Oh, scented candle." Like she wanted me to blow it out because it was like filling up my apartment with I was like, oh, it's like cinnamon. I got it to like be a romantic gesture, some lame romantic gesture. Anyway, but my point is I know you're highly sensitive, so you're spending 9 months sniffing toilets.
Yeah,
this is bizarre.
It is, but I was more compelled by getting it to work because I knew it could. So I was just trying to align with it actually working. And then one day he walks out of the bathroom and he says, "Oh my God, we're gonna be millionaires." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Do you realize what you've done? You've taken the smell out of shit." That's what he said.
You've taken the smell out of shit.
He did. And I was like, "It works?" And he goes, "Yeah." And then I went in there and smelled, and it did. And I sent it out to a few friends and just said, what do you guys think? And they were like,
I got a really weird favor to ask you.
What?
No, I mean, that's what you're saying to your friends.
Oh, yeah. I was like, would you try this and let me know? And they wouldn't fill out my form. I can be type A. So I had this whole form, yes and no. What was your experience? And they just picked up the phone and they were like, okay, woman, you need to put this on the market.
Really?
And they were even asking me to make it their refills in my house.
Wow. Oh, they wanted more of it.
Yeah. And I haven't created a product like that until I did Supernatural. People wanted the cleaners, but my new deodorant for Poo-Pourri, Pit-Pourri, is so good that when my friends were testing it, they were like, this natural deodorant, they were cutting it out of the tubes. I first put it in paper.
Yeah,
it was not
you
a
sent
good
me some.
But they were just talking about how great it works. But
It is great.
but anyway, I again, it's
You
not
never
a
had-
shameless plug. It's like I'm really excited about it and I love to share.
Yeah.
It's a really, really great product.
Well, what, Poo-Pourri?
No, Pit-Pourri too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pit-Pourri's great. But also, Let's start with Poo-Pourri. You take the smell, as Hector says, you take this, do you realize what you've done? You've taken the smell out of shit.
Yes. Yeah, and then I really had no idea about this particular business. I'd never been in consumer packaged goods, although you put together that I'd been in beauty salons and things. So that makes sense. And I was just really adamant that I wanted to bring this to the market.
Wow.
Again, I hadn't put the piece together that I thought I needed to be successful. People would listen to me. I was more like, oh my God, so turned on by this idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would stay up all night researching.
Wow.
I would mix all day. Like
Staying
it was
up all night researching.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I was really obsessed with,
Wow.
because I saw it.
Yeah.
You know, once an inventor sees something, you got to make it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
An
that
inventor.
period in
I'm sorry to
print.
say this, but that's a great title for you. An inventor.
Wow, I never thought about that.
You just said once an inventor
Yeah.
sees it, and you just said,
I actually did win an Edison Award.
what?
Yeah, where
What's
Elon
that?
for Poo-Pourri.
Wow. Well, you invented it.
I know.
You have actually
I know.
invented this thing.
Yeah, and I go there, and of course, Elon had won the big award, right? I just won one of the categories. And I'm sitting with all these guys from, like, you know, Tesla and all this stuff. And they're like, what'd you invent? And I'm like, Poo-Pourri. And I was all embarrassed. And they were like, oh, my God, we love that stuff. They were so sweet.
Aw.
An inventor just cares about inventions, right?
An inventor just cares about inventions.
They just want something new.
Nice.
They just want something new.
Nice.
If you're inventing something new, they're happy. It doesn't matter.
I like that because I love, I always say, oh, God, listen to Rich Roll's podcast, listen to Jonathan Field's podcast, like most podcasts are, and I'm like, I just love the podcast. Like, let's just get in. Like, when you love something, you just share it. Like, it's good
You
for
love it.
everybody.
Yes.
So now you're in your early 40s. You come up with the invention. Okay, now what happens? We're not even at the psychedelic part yet.
Oh, no. So I started
You have to tell me. I know the other two, but you have to tell me when the third book shows up.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
So anyway, so what happened was I started putting the product on the market. I made 2,000 bottles. I think that was the least number.
At your house?
And I talk about this on a lot of entrepreneurial websites, but I literally what I do want people to know is there's a myth that everyone's out to get you and nobody wants to help you. The exact opposite is true, is what I found. Everyone wants to help you. Everyone wants to support you when you let them know your position. I'm new to this. I'm trying to figure this out. Can you help me? So that's
when you
the way.
let them
that's
know
the,
your position, that's an interesting suffix there.
Yeah, you know, my daughter is in film school and she called me her first film and she had to have 2 birds and she's in New York and she's stressing out. And I said, baby, people want to help you. Like, you know, call a bird store and tell them that you're a film student at NYU, you know, whatever. And she called me back and she's like, Mom, they're going to loan me 2 birds. Everybody does want to help me. And I said, yes, they do.
If they know your position.
If they know your position, let them know, I'm new to this. I'm trying to figure this out. Can you help me? That's how I found my manufacturers. That's how I learned this whole business, was asking questions, asking for help. Right? Interesting, right? I didn't ask for that when I was younger, but now that I have agency, do you see how much I've cleaned up? So now I'm getting to redo life with new energy and new patterns.
Wow.
I know how to say no now. I know how to ask for help.
So basically, you start the therapy. You're doing somatic stuff. You've been doing therapy every week since. Now you started to make 2,000 bottles. 2,000 bottles you made because you started to ask questions. As you told your daughter, you know, people want to help you if they know your position. That's how you found your manufacturers. How you're staying up all night doing research, and suddenly this business starts to blossom.
People adopted it and like really rooted it along from the beginning. You know, people wanted to share it. Another thing I tell entrepreneurs is, and I want everybody to know this, stop making good shit. Make great shit.
Ooh.
We got enough good shit in the world.
Ooh.
When it's great, people tell other people about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And our world would change. We'd have less products, better products. So, and I'm not just saying, but Poo-Pourri did
Yes.
drastically change that experience.
You also have to have the taste and the understanding of what great is, which, by the way, I think, is missing.
That's a good point.
Well, like chapter 23, we had Tim Urban on the show. He writes the blog Wait But Why. He said, if I spent a whole week on a blog post and I write like a 5,000 word blog post, I knew I could write a great blog post that people would tell each other about. So his stuff started to go super, super viral.
That's it.
Because it was like, like think about Mark Manson articles, like everyone's sending them around because they're so much better than the average blog post.
Right.
I was back home writing the average blog post. So, you know what I mean? So I can identify with what they're saying and what you're saying. But my point is, I thought my blog posts were great. My point is, truthfully, you have to have an ideometer on your brain to identify what great is. And that's a piece, Ira Glass says you can't teach taste. Or maybe it's not Ira Glass. There's that quote, like the taste is. You also have to have your bar is your own bar. Like that's the thing.
It is, and I'm also going to go back to these alive ideas. So this idea turned me on. It lit me up. Like I was on fire with it. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are thinking they should make something versus this being as being an idea that comes in and lights a flame in their body. It's like falling in love.
Yeah.
They fall in love with every single idea that comes.
Yeah.
My God, I've got hundreds a day. How many did you hear popping out of me today? It's just like, it's a plethora. I've got the ones that light me up and turn me on are the ones that I believe, one of my other teachers is Barbara Marx Hubbard. She's passed away, but she said that is evolutionary impulses inside of us, and it's actually what evolution is saying it needs to progress for humanity. Yeah.
My brain's like just trying to wrap its head around.
So alive ideas, what I call alive, the ones that turn you on, light you up.
Yeah.
That again, those 4 things.
I haven't held those 4 things ever.
You haven't?
No,
one thing?
I've never had
You've probably not paid attention to it. This is why body intelligence is so smart.
I've never had a thing running up my leg or my arm before.
I bet you have. You've never been talking to somebody something you go, I've got chill bumps.
I never have said that. I've never said that.
Really?
My wife says that all the time. She always says I got goosebumps. I never said that.
Yeah, you might want to try somatic therapy.
What do you think I'm trying to do with this podcast here?
Not joking. That's a really good one. We'll talk about that later as friends.
Okay.
We're serious here.
Okay.
So,
No. This is good. This is healthy. So you start. This thing starts to sell like hotcakes. It sounds like. Sounds like.
And what I believe in, the way I view life is that the idea was alive, like it wanted to be born.
Kevin Kelly wrote a book called What Technology Wants, and it describes the fact technology is working its way through us.
Yeah,
completely. And you call this way with ideas. He might call it technology or something. There's a piece of technology you created.
Yeah.
Bathroom spray, just like Edison made the light bulb. You're awarded his prize for a reason. The idea pulled itself out of you. David Mitchell in chapter 58 said, he describes writing as like this way of like kind of giving over yourself to the thing that's flying through you.
That's it. And I was an open channel enough because I had alleviated so much of my pain and suffering.
Yes.
That now was an open channel for this to start flowing through. Right? My really dearest sweetheart and sweetheart in the most loving way and mentor, Gay Hendricks, talks about how if you, let's just say all of your emotional experience is a pipe, and if you've got so much anger and sadness that has been unfelt, that imagine 3/4 of a pipe filled with so much unresolved anger and sadness. You've only got 1/4 of a pipe left for happiness and joy.
Oh, wow.
So my problem is, going back to antidepressants, is you go into a Western doctor and he goes, oh, you're sad, let's put a pill on it. And you're never going to get that happiness and joy because you haven't dealt with that original anger and sadness. And once you go in and it's like cleaning your pipes. When you go in,
you make it sound easier than it might be for some people. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying it is easy. I'm just saying for some people that is not a place they can.
Do you know what it takes is bravery. I've had several therapists say you're the bravest person that I know. But again, what am I looking for? Freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to jump off that cliff in that therapy session. Like, I'm not willing to go back.
Plus, add in the curiosity, add in the seeking nature. We haven't, I've hinted at it a few times now, but so tip me into, I'm interested in pieces that are missing for me just as a friend that have known you for a while.
Yeah.
So the third marriage, like that's a story that I don't know, on what happened there. And then the what tipped you into like ceremony and psychedelic medicine, because I'm seeing this, I haven't got to the third book yet, but this business seems to be thriving. I'm assuming you suddenly are, as Hector predicted, making millions of dollars. You took the smell out of shit. This thing's being sold in thousands of boutiques, but there's some more inflection points coming here.
There are, and I will just tell people, because if they're tracking that and they are entrepreneurs, that I literally just kept asking questions the whole way. Someone said, you need to sell retail. I'm like, how do you do that? And they're like, oh, you need to, half the price, and then they sell it. I'm like, okay, great. And then, oh, you need to go to market. I'm like, how do you do that? And they're like, oh, you sign up here. And I'm in Dallas market. And,
who you asking?
And
all
I was
these
like, that's
questions
great. There's people around. You call people. Like, that's the problem. People, to find a manufacturer, I just started calling manufacturers. I'm like, they make shampoo. I didn't even think I had Google back then. I searched on the internet, like, shampoo
factory
factories.
Phone number.
And I would call and talk to Joanne or whoever answers. And I'd be like, Joanne, I'm trying to make this bathroom spray, and it's made with essential oils, and do you guys do that? And she'd say no. And I would say, well, can you point me in a direction? I really need help. I've never been in this business before. Again, I explained my position.
Wow.
And I would even have people go, you know what, let me get that and I will call you back. And they would call you back with the information.
Wow.
So people want to help.
You don't chalk that up to your voice or, your...
No.
Because you're also in the recruiting, you know how to go fishing. Like there's some skills here too. It's not just telling people I need help. Like
Probably, but I know if people... knocked on my door and said, is this a church? And I'd be like, no. And they'd say, I want to go to church. Can you help me? I would help find them a church, right? It's just, I think our nature is...
this isn't a church, but I want when you're like, oh yeah, there's a good church down the street. Let me tell you how to get there.
Totally. People want to help you.
Right. We have a community. One of the pieces on trust that I'm writing about right now is community. We have Dunbar's number. It takes a village. There's something about the fact that when you put yourself out there vulnerably and honestly.
Yes. People
and you weren't a ridiculous. You weren't on the number 83 on the Forbes at the time either. Like people also saw in you a story that like this person could use a hand. You can hear it in your voice.
Yeah. I was truly needing help, and I was curious. And I would ask them questions about the industry. So you don't make this, what do you make and why? And people will talk to you for as long as they do.
Wow.
But I think curiosity is what drives you along with that inner passion.
Yeah, of course.
Something that's keeping you going. So I sold a lot of bottles, 200,000 bottles first year during the recession, people. Wow. There's another thing I want to blast out to the universe. People talk about how hard it is and you can't make business and you can't anything. I grew my business selling a $10 poo spray against a $1 competitor. You probably know who that is, all those companies.
You mean it cost
during the recession, and I sold 200,000 bottles, $1 million worth my first year.
Wow.
Now, $1 million right now is not as much as it was,
What do you mean dollar competitor?
16 years ago.
Why wouldn't everybody buy the dollar thing then?
Well, exactly, because this was better.
Right.
It was a great product, right?
Yeah.
And I also think people also vibrate with the levity, the fun energy.
There's something about your packaging,
fun.
Your design.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about, and we're not going to talk about because of time, but like you had crazy viral marketing campaigns. The YouTube ad with the, sort of the prissy woman in the business suit, like with the English, she goes, hundreds of millions of views in like days. You were doing some stuff here that was just unbelievable.
Again, that came from an inner feeling. It was like, I got to go. So I found these marketers. I did it. And the reason I will talk a lot about not a lot, but I have talked a lot about somatic therapy and these therapies is because when you can remove the trauma, again, your access to your own body intelligence becomes available. It's not available on antidepressants. Do you see it dulls down your senses? It's like putting a governor on a car, and that's fine. Sometimes I needed a governor on the car.
Governor?
I don't know. You never heard of that back in the day?
What's a governor?
Like U-Haul trucks used to have them. A governor. It could only go 65 miles an hour.
Oh, so you can't go too fast.
Yeah. And I'm not an expert, but
no, I just never heard that word before. That's
it dampens things.
Yeah. Right.
So I would rather unclog those pipes so that I can have access to all the other abundance, joy and love.
Yeah.
Also in David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, the pivot point is first neutrality, being neutral to the situation or whatever's happening, being willing and accepting. After acceptance, you can go up to peace, love, and joy.
Sorry, that's the David. Say that.
David Hawkins from the Scale of Consciousness in Power versus Force.
Power versus Force, which is...
That's another book.
Yeah, no, but you told me that was one of your formative books if we had time. So what were the 6 things? This one last time, and then I would like understand the marriage and the ceremony. I'd like to see where those pieces come in.
So, in Power versus Force, David Hawkins talks about the scale of emotions or frequencies, but the scale of emotions, and the lowest, densest one is fear, and the top one is joy, right? And in between, there's a scale of other feelings. For example, on Force, what he calls it, the bottom part is fear, anger, pride, all of those. But where it pivots is neutrality, being neutral. Okay, you're neutral to the positive or the negative. Can I at least get to neutral? Byron Katie with that thought's getting you to neutral.
Brené Brown talks about that with her relationship with alcohol. A big book was one of her 3 most formative. She talks about getting to a place of neutrality, not running away from it, not running towards it.
That's it. Can I just get neutral with it? And then I'm start being willing, and then can I accept the situation?
Yeah.
And then I can start going up the scale of consciousness.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
So anyway, Poo-Pourri was going, and it was really amazing. And my son was in Dustin, that you met today, was in a really bad place. I really thought I wasn't going to have him long, very goth and dark, and I wasn't going to have him. There is no God. Yeah, I figured that he might kill himself.
Oh my gosh. And
he wouldn't go to therapy, and I was really pretty, distraught, of course. But I wake up one morning and I hear ayahuasca and Dustin.
What do you mean you hear?
I heard it.
What do you mean you heard it on the radio?
You've never heard a proverbial voice from God?
No.
Okay, well, I have. And it said ayahuasca and Dustin. I heard it, like an external voice in my head saying ayahuasca and Dustin. And I go to my computer and I type in trying to spell it, ayahuasca. So I'm trying to spell it somehow.
Sorry, is this the first time in your life you've heard a voice of God?
One time I heard like a whole choir of angels singing. And I'm trying to think. I think there was one other time, but not a lot. It's not a daily thing.
Right. And Dustin is how old, by the way?
He was 19.
So you hear ayahuasca and Dustin, you hear this voice. You go to your computer, which we could talk about this voice more, but you go to your computer. Ayahuasca is not a very easy word to spell.
Right. And I thank God, ended up on an article from National Geographic called To Hell and Back. And I read it, and it was about a National Geographic reporter who had depression and went down to Peru, faced hell, drank this potion, went to hell, and then came back. And in the ceremony, after they drank the ayahuasca, I'll get a little more clear there, and came back free of their depression.
Okay.
Ayahuasca is actually a combination of two. The ayahuasca vine by itself doesn't do anything.
It's a plant.
It's a plant, but when you put another plant with it, it becomes a hallucinogen.
What plant?
It's called chacruna.
And it only grows in Peru?
Yeah.
Really? It's a plant that's native to Peru?
I don't know if it only grows in Peru, but I think so.
So they squeeze this plant. So they
squeeze those two together.
You drink it. How long does this hallucination last for?
4 to 10 hours.
And then you puke or something?
Yeah, you puke.
You always puke?
You purge it. Not always, but pretty much so.
So you drink the hallucinogen, it makes you hallucinogenic, and then you spit it out.
Yes. But what it does is it actually shows you your subconscious mind.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And what's so wild, I also will say about ayahuasca, I know everybody, lots of people talk about it. Hell, probably somebody in your streets brewing it these days. But what happens with it is that it actually goes in and it knows how to bring up whatever darkness. I'm putting that quotations too because I don't know how much all of that's true. But what I do know is its actual mode, and what it does is you face yourself fully. And once you face yourself, you can get a lot of things right. And then once you go through that journey of facing yourself, you end up usually puking it back out. It's like this physical reaction of the completion of that.
Why is it done in the jungle?
That's where it originated.
So it stays there.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I don't remember the exact statistics, but I'd love to look it up at some point. They said that the statistically impossible for somebody to accidentally find out of the millions of species of plants that are in the Amazon is for them to find out which two would create this particular effect when combined. So they say down in Peru that it was given to them from from God.
And they've been using it for a long time, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
And they
generations upon generations.
Quote, they use it frequently. It's like
and they use it as medicine to get rid of the dis-ease that's in the body.
So people travel from all over the world now. I'm assuming it's a booming industry.
It's a booming industry.
You go down there. What you got to pay? Who are you paying for this thing?
Is
it ayahuasca tour bus?
Then it was pretty expensive. Well, yeah, and it didn't used to be so much. This was a tour, but it was pretty new to that. This was 16 years ago.
Yeah. You were early.
Yeah.
Early in ayahuasca.
So I came
early
back.
in a lot of things, honestly.
Yeah. So I came back and told Dustin. I sent him the article. He said he needed to go. And that was Wednesday morning. On Saturday morning, he was on a plane down to the jungle.
Wow.
And they told me, no cell phone, no Wi-Fi. So here's my 19-year-old that's in trouble. I read an article.
Yeah,
and I send
from a
him,
voice.
He says, from a voice. He says, yes, that he needs to go.
Wow.
He's on a plane. The shaman told me, you're not going to hear from me for 5 days.
5 days? But you said it only takes 4 hours.
Well, yeah, but
this
tour was, they go into the jungle where there's no cell phone.
So there's days without them doing it before?
No, you do 5 journeys.
5?
5.
You do this 5 times?
5 times.
5 times in 5 days? What if you don't like
5 times in 10 days.
What if you want to go back?
Well, you can leave. I guess you can leave when they go back 5 days later.
Another 10-day seminar here.
Another 10-day. So he said, you can call on day 5. I'll come back to Iquitos and I'll tell you how he's doing. I said, okay. So I call it day 5 and they said, oh my God, he's doing amazing. I said, great. So Dustin calls me 10 days later. I'll never forget this moment. He calls me from Iquitos. From Peru. And he says, Mom, God is real. And he's bawling. And he says, I've been healed. And I was like, what the hell is this stuff? Then I started asking questions, right? It's like, what just happened? You have to understand, I'm still in my Byron Katie bliss.
Yeah. You got a big company that's growing right from under you now.
But more, I kind of thought the work was the only way, right? Because this is what saved my life. And in therapy, but... And he came home and I sat up with him till probably 3 a.m. And I was just asking him questions like you would ask a guru. Yeah. And
well, you were like, what do you mean I'm healed? Healed from what? Like, what do you mean?
From his depression.
Oh, so the depression lifted.
And so
he wasn't depressed after that.
He's gone through stages, but no,
but there
not then.
There was a noticeable shift.
Noticeable shift, a 180. Wow. And the reason ayahuasca, and there's lots of science around this. Please go study it because there's lots of just doing more studies every day on it, which I'm excited.
Well,
is it actually does increase your serotonin.
Okay.
So what happens with antidepressants? It actually is damaging to the brain. There's maybe Stanley Groff. I don't know. In UCLA, I believe he did. He's a psychology professor, and he did a lot of work around ayahuasca and the brain. Okay. And ayahuasca it has no damage to the brain. It increases serotonin. So I have friends that do it every 6 months.
Every 6 months?
Well, once every 6 months to increase their serotonin so they don't have to take antidepressants.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they use it as a natural antidepressant.
Okay, and then so you start going. You're like, give me some of this.
Well, I was suspicious, honestly. I was like, what come on. And I'd never, of course, done a hallucinogen ever. I didn't even know what cocaine was. Remember, like, no, I didn't do
even
any
though
of
it
that.
was found in your old Dress to Kill.
I had never done any partying, nothing like that. I mean, I did alcohol partying, but not that. And I went down there, and my first journeys were my first. It's kind of funny. I bet you it's 38 because of 38 years. I often say 35. It was around 7 trips down to Peru, or 8. That, I mean, I was getting my ass handed to me. Hector would say, "Why do you keep doing this?" Because I was going into hell every night, like brutal.
You didn't have the experience that your son had. You had a different experience.
I had a
Yours
different
was much
experience.
more torturous, it sounds like.
Much more torturous, but every time I felt a little better, and every time I felt a little better. So I believed what happened is I believe Byron
Can
Katie...
I ask how much this costs, by the way?
I don't even remember back then.
Like, is this hundreds, thousands of
probably, no. I mean, to take the whole family, which I eventually did, yes, but...
We're going to Disney. No, we're not going to Disneyland.
Yeah, it was probably like maybe $8,000 for 10 days.
Wow. Okay,
yeah.
so this is
it was a lot. And we went to what they would call, the Ritz Hamilton. So even though it had, a mattress on the floor,
someone's making
cold
a dinner.
showers.
Someone's making a dinner too.
Someone's making you dinner. It is in the jungle, but
Okay.
But anyway, so I started going down, and every single time, and probably about 35, 38 times, I started developing that agency to where I could hold myself in the hallucinogen. So do you see how my life? It was very much my life. So the first 38 journeys, and I bet you $1 million it was 38 of when this turning point happened, because I see the mirror reflection to my life, right? And then after, I'm just going to start saying it, 38 journeys, what happened is I developed an inner strength where I wasn't getting tumbled so much in ayahuasca. So I developed agency, more agency. And that's when I started realizing and building power, going, no substance has control over me. I have free will. I have sovereignty. I am sovereign over even this hallucinogen that I'm taking, right? So I started developing this different experience with it. And so it was more like I'm going to drink it to learn, but I am constantly aware, and I'm not getting thrown back and forth anymore, which is so symbolic to my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I often say that ayahuasca is life compressed in 4 to 6 hours. So you drink it, and let's say you're going through shame.
Yeah.
You got all the shame of your life going through in 4 to 6 hours.
So if I went down there, I drink this stuff. By the way, my interest is very low, because I don't feel like I need to, or I don't want to, or it's the interest level is very low.
You can't really feel in your body.
So what am I supposed to do? So let's just say I go down there and try this. Okay, let's just say.
Yeah.
Okay, I pay the $8,000. Someone cooks me dinner. I'm sleeping on a cold floor. I take the tour bus into the jungle, and I'm there for 10 days. I do 5 ceremonies. What can I expect? What can I expect might?
Well, most people that I've been in journeys with, and I've been in a lot, feel relieved, because you work out a lot of shit in that 4 to 6 hours. It's like the first time my sister did it, super Christian. I sent her down to Peru. She was terrified. She drank ayahuasca, and she will tell you it felt like 15 years of therapy. Because you get a lot of stuff worked out. Time's compressed, right? If you're working on shame, you're working on shame of grueling 3 hours.
What happens in the 3 hours?
Well, let's just take shame. As I went through societal shame, my own personal body shame, any sexual shame that I have. I mean, you just go through.
You say I went through it. Was it like visions?
Oh yeah, you see it all, and you feel it.
You see it all. Like it's
you
like
see it, and
you don't feel
it.
You don't feel like the room around you is there.
No.
Really?
No, you're literally journeying through shame. It's like you're being shown a movie, and you're in the movie until you start learning you're being shown a movie, which was the agency I talked about. But before, you're just traveling through all levels of shame.
Wow.
In the past, people talk about, in Christianity, talk about, you'll meet your maker, right? And I believe that is a version of meeting your maker.
Wow.
You know, for example, I went through one of my ceremonies was on lying, and I used to
Online?
lying.
Oh,
I used to tell, you're like, online?
they just ship it to you now.
There's a
You open the
shaman.
package and
Actually,
you dial on Zoom.
You can do that with ketamine journeys now.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
I did
what's
I was a participant in a research project on that. But telemedicine for ketamine journeys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually really effective. But so let's just say lying, and it's literally like this, like of every lie I had ever told.
Mm-hmm.
And once you see all that,
Every lie I've ever told. Oh my God.
oh, it just comes in. Like,
that might take more than 4 hours.
well, it's very fast,
Yeah,
right? So you're just seeing like it's
Wow.
rapid fast. There's no
Wow.
time in those
Wow.
spaces.
Wow. And you're in a room with other people, strangers.
Yeah, but you're in your own journey.
Yeah, but there's somebody that's quote unquote sober watching over you in some safe way.
Yeah, the shaman is.
Nothing bad
is
ever
guiding
happens.
it.
Nobody dies during this or runs out of a window
I mean, there
or
have been
something.
a couple of. I mean, not generally. You know, yes, there have been some people that have died, but they usually didn't disclose that. You can't be on antidepressants. Or any kind of MAO, I think inhibitor it's called, before you go. So you have to get your body clear of that before you can actually do ayahuasca.
Well, that's quite.
Most people that do that, or it's a careless shaman that was serving them. There are some plants down in Peru that are poisonous, so you need to go to a reputable place with reputable people.
Yeah, this does sound scary. Check out ratemyshaman.com before you head down there. But you can I just ask, do you think everybody should, like, are you on the everybody should do this kind of mindset, or?
Well, it depends. You know, someone just asked me, you know, should I do ketamine? And I'm like, well, it depends on what level of, you know, should you do it for enlightenment? No. You know, are you happy? Okay, no. Why would you do it just for a journey?
Yeah. You're saying you're not
it.
recommending recreational drugs here. You're recommending
no, and
clinical.
so many people go down. I want to get the ayahuasca experience again. What was that? What's the only thing I've been wanting, Neil? Freedom. So I'm willing to go get free.
I thought you felt free after Byron Katie running this $1 million business now.
What?
I thought you felt free after Byron Katie now running a multi-million-dollar business.
I did.
So why are you chasing freedom now? You already felt free.
Well, exactly. Because I lost it or didn't have it. Because actually what I believe happened, and I've thought about this a lot, is that I took my business because of my past programming or conditioning, however you want to say it. Some people can even say trauma, you know. Continued. I'm not sure I should have been the CEO of Poo-Pourri this entire time. I don't think it's my zone of genius. I think it's my zone of excellence. It's created a lot of stress on me and my body. And I was still trying to, you have to understand, I went from blissed out, happy, crying all the time to running a very successful, wildly, fastly growing business.
Hypergrowth. Hiring people. You probably had like dozens of people working for you.
Everything. Dozens of people working for me. So now I had all these responsibilities, which reminded me of all the responsibilities in my childhood.
Taking care of your mom.
So, like, yeah, your life isn't going to be fixed in 10 days. If you've had the story I've had, you ain't going to fix that in 10 days. I don't care what you take. I mean, I've had some shit to clean up, people. Right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm really loving this.
So if you had a great family life and you're happy and you don't need to change anything
As
in your
you
life,
say, I have some shit to clean up. I'm looking behind you at the ornate white fireplace. Above it is like kind of like mahogany kind of what's it, embossed wood behind that? What's that, like a bedroom up there or something?
That's original.
Really?
No, that is the library.
There's a library up there?
Yeah, it used to be the choir.
What other nooks and crannies you got in this place? What's in the basement?
I have a podcast room, which we didn't use. I built one. I've never launched a podcast, but I have a room. I have a painting room.
A painting room?
Yep. I have a little sewing factory in the basement.
Sewing factory?
It was 15,000 square feet.
The sewing factory?
No, the whole house.
Okay.
So I've got room for stuff.
Yeah.
And then I have a sauna room.
There's a sauna in here.
Yeah.
I was not made aware of the sauna.
Oh, well,
what
shit.
about ice plunge?
You could have done that today instead of listening to us.
Ice plunge? You got an ice bath?
Not yet.
Okay, well, I'm sure.
Don't trust me.
Pardon?
I'm already talking to structural engineers because I want to put it in that room, but they're heavy.
In the sauna room.
Yeah.
Right, and then behind us is this giant kitchen.
Yeah, that's at the altar of the church. That's the old altar. Right?
Oh, the altar is, you've turned the altar into the kitchen.
Yeah.
And there's a quote behind it. Is that Hafiz?
Yeah. My daughter called one day and she said, Mom, if you were a poem, this is you. And what I love is the last line says, you carry all the ingredients to turn your existence into joy. Mix them, mix them.
Hafiz. The famous, I believe, Sufi poet?
Sufi poet, yes.
There's some incredible Hafiz quotes out there.
And that's my daughter's handwriting.
No way. And it's for, people can't see this. It's like a 4 foot by 2 foot like giant black thing with a handwriting carved out of it. And behind it is like a lit glass. Yeah, this place is blinged out.
I had that etched out of metal.
Etched out of metal?
Yeah, I asked my daughter, I said, would you write it for me? And then I had it formatted by a graphic designer. That's her handwriting. And then they went and etched it. And then that's of course, circle of life.
I think if you get extremely rich in life, like, kind of rich, you gotta have some fun with it. You gotta ask your daughter to write a little quote out when she calls you and get it etched out in metal, hung in the kitchen where it was the altar of the church that you bought for, how much was it? I know it's public because I've seen it online.
What I bought it for only $650,000.
Oh, a whole church?
You got a whole church.
Wow.
But I put millions in it.
And
I think it's appraised around $4 million now or something.
Okay, wow. Okay, but this and the sex swing is hanging what 40?
It is not a sex swing.
40. I know. We know why too. And 40 feet above us. Is that right? Is it like what was that?
It's like 35 feet.
You decided just to put a 40-foot swing in your living room?
I did. For 2 years I kept telling my assistant I want to swing. And finally I go, why? What's happening with the swing? And she goes, oh, you really want to swing? And I was like, yes. I have room in here. What else? I mean, it's a playground. I bring people here and then we can play all day. That's play for me today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have the table where you've got the kind of apothecary thing happening. Guest rooms all over the place. Right now, there's a coder working upstairs as we talk. It's late night.
Yeah,
and there's
they're
a
all
coder
working. The other ones went to stay with my son Dustin, but they're coding all night tonight.
Really?
Yeah, we've got 5 programmers coding tonight.
Oh my gosh, all night?
Yeah.
What do you mean
they'll show us what happened
in the morning?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's so amazing what can happen.
You're like a magician.
Well, what's funny is like Poo-Pourri is the magician archetype. And that's my archetype as well. Alchemist, right? So I love...
Can I ask you what happened to the third marriage?
Yeah, I think that I needed to grow into the person I am. And whatever relationship we had, you have to understand the trajectory of that relationship. Like I was extremely depressed to the point of wanting to kill myself a few times in that marriage. I was not a great person or I'm sure a great wife, even though he never complained and Hector loves me and I love him.
He was your angel.
He was my angel. That's a lot of change to take in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Over 26 years.
You changed species almost.
Yeah, for sure. And I was ready to go. Like I'm ready to fly, man. My wings have been clipped and I've got to go. And I initially wanted him to come with me. I mean, of course, I was like, I've got to expand. Like, let's go. And, he had his own stuff as well with that, but.
Thank you for talking, because that's something I hadn't heard you talk about. And
yeah.
I know it's close to you, but I appreciate you.
And he has said to me, you would not be the woman you are. Which is very sweet, and I don't think he would have been the person he was. It was wrapped in a lot of past. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot to overcome.
It's so scary, these days. Not scary, but just like, Leslie and I are so deeply in love. We've been married 10 years this summer. And, our love is so just deeply genetically like entwined. And it's just so, I'm so in love. And, with lifespans getting so long, it's kind of It's a somewhat unsettling thought to just be, and we've talked about this openly, and of course you see it everywhere in society, but it's like, how long were you together?
26 years.
Yeah, and like there's many people, I'm like, and it's like, it's such an interesting thing to explore, and how do you explore that kind of safely in a relationship? And so fascinating. So you had this you went a totally different, not different, but something changed in you. And as you say, he was my angel. I love him. He loves me. Mm-hmm. And, the psychedelic medicine is helping you process a lot. The company's experiencing hyper growth. It couldn't be, the $1 billion company it is, without, some of what you have poured into it. A lot. You've poured your whole self into it.
I poured my whole self into it. And this is going to bring us to our third book, The Big Leap, by Gay Hendricks. And he's one of my personal mentors. I have a very amazing relationship with him. But what changed about this book is that Gay says that our brains were formed on fear and survival. So we have to now expand into abundance, love, and joy. And when we are creating things in our life, that if we have some big expansion happen, and then all of a sudden, usually something bad will happen, he says he calls it an upper limit problem. So the name of the game is expansion, and the commitment that he uses is my main commitment that I use. I commit to expanding my capacity for abundance, love, and joy every day as I inspire others to do the same. So I want my capacity to be able to hold abundance, love, and joy, to keep expanding, right? Because otherwise I'm going to do something to sabotage myself, for me to get back down to that pattern of fear and survival. So that's
which
how
makes
I started.
sense. Our species has been around 3 million years. Before that, if you look at just like this, anatomy and structure of us, our species 300,000, the hominid race, like kind of species 3 million years. Obviously, 99.9% of our lifespan was in a role of like almost every other insect and animal on the planet today, in one of brute survival and of I kill it or it kills me, and we mate to create progeny that just goes forward and that just rips through us, and we got it. And lifespan was like a third of what it is now, if not less than that. And suddenly we've just hit this like era of abundance out of nowhere 100 years ago, and there's just no way our brains or our minds are anywhere close to beginning to process to start to live in that kind of space. Obviously, when you get a blood test back from your doctor, you want to look for the high cholesterol. You get a math test back from your teacher, you want to look for the question you got wrong. You drive by a car accident on the highway, everybody's fucking neck turns.
Yes.
We are programmed to look for it.
Programmed and addicted to adrenaline and drama. And I can see that too. That's another pattern, right? It's like, I know what to do when it's dramatic. This job's killing me. These statements that aren't true. Well, it kind of is true. It's reducing your life force energy.
No, but people will say that about a lineup or a traffic jam or like headlines do this to us all the time.
The television, the newspapers, it's all filled with
the whole
drama.
orientation of social media is to just prey upon your amygdala.
Totally. And that's the fear and survival, right? And it produces adrenaline in the body. So we get a little high from it.
We like it.
Yeah. So the reduction for me, and what Gay's book said is, when you get too much, you can screw it all up, right?
Get too much what?
Like abundance, love, and joy. When you experience too much,
interesting.
then you can actually hit your head on this energetic ceiling and start fucking it up, right? You see actors do that. They'll win an Oscar, and then all of a sudden they're, in rehab. It's like... What happens
usually
is...
there's a divorce involved there.
Totally. There's always some drama, right? As opposed to my practice has been, I commit to expanding my capacity. So now that I went to a space from marriage of I need to expand to, divorced and in a church, and I'm in this expansive space, and I'm doing these hallucinogens. I'm doing therapy. Another thing is, I do not think the hallucinogens, like ayahuasca alone, it does do a little, which is enough to get you over. But I journeyed with people 16 years ago and their lives didn't change. My life changed drastically because I would come back and integrate with therapy and also in the physical world. So I call it I named it the Trinity of Transformation. You have to work on all three planes, the spiritual plane, the mental plane or psychological plane, and the physical plane.
Spiritual, mental, physical have to be worked on all together. So if you go to do ayahuasca, for example, or any one thing in and of itself or on its own, and you do not integrate back with that plane, spiritual, mental, physical, then it's not fully realized or metabolized inside
you. So when I saw the lie in ayahuasca, I would come back and make the actual amends in person to the person. I didn't just go, it's all cleared up.
Amends?
Oh, yeah.
With what people?
Oh, lots. I mean, a few years ago, I called 56 or 57 ex-employees.
Ex-employees?
Yeah, and let them know that I was not a great person. I was stressed out and angry and tired, and it had nothing to do with them. And I could see how they could have made up that story.
Oh, wow. Because you felt that there's some reputation that had been creaed about you as this.
No, it was more just my own personal amends. I felt bad.
And with this amends or going back into your past, does anything trace back to the people at the beginning of this conversation? Like the family that you grew up with, the mom, dad, stepdad, anything trace back to there?
Yeah, I was always making amends or telling people what I saw and how I acted and how that must have made them feel. And I did lots and lots and lots of those amends. And worked them in therapy. Why would I even do that in the first place? So you see, I'm addressing things from all three levels. So I would do the spiritual plane, and then I would come back and do the psychological. That's the therapy integration. And then I would do whatever physical action needed to be done to clear up the physical plane.
Interesting.
So when you work on all three planes,
and then somehow you cross this book. I got a paperback here. It's called The Big Leap. It's got an all caps, Arial black, kind of written in orange, The Big Leap. Above it, conquer your hidden fear and take life to the next level. There is a very captivating photo of a goldfish leaping from a small goldfish bowl into presumably this bigger bowl beside it. Underneath it says Gay Hendricks, New York Times bestselling author of 5 Wishes. On the back, this paperback, by the way, published 2009, by Harper One. Gay Hendricks is alive today. He's a 78-year, as he is your mentor, 78 years old, American psychologist, writer, and personal growth teacher, similar to Byron Katie, like an active kind of, I went to his website, he's got $1,500 kind of courses for sale today, like he's an active thing. Like the other books, you can file this one under 158.51. In The Big Leap, New York Times bestselling author Gay Hendricks reveals a simple yet comprehensive program for overcoming our one barrier to happiness and fulfillment, providing a clear path for achieving our true potential and attaining not only financial success, but also success in love and life. This is a kind of book that you read, it's not chock full of research or science. It's kind of like you're getting a lecture by one guy, and he's taking it through like the ultimate pep talk on how to expand yourself and I guess potentially take this big leap that you might have been thinking about. Quote from the book, "In my life, I've discovered that if I cling to the notion that something is not possible, I'm arguing in favor of limitation. And if I argue for my limitations, I get to keep them." So keep going with your relationship with this book. And then this guy it seems like a lot of things, you pull him into your life here somehow. And then I got Jonathan's question and a couple closing questions to end us off.
Okay, so what I loved about this pivotal book, remember, first, it's my connection back to anything bigger than myself and man's search for meaning.
Yes.
That's when, oh my God, there's a spiritual world out there I've abandoned. The second one is loving what is, me accepting my reality and transforming it, being able to control or, start redirecting my life. And the third one was The Big Leap, because now it's not a game of survival, it's a game of expansion. How much can I continue expanding into more and more abundance, love, and joy every single day as I inspire others to do the same, which is why I share this information. There's no use me learning it if I can't share it and tell other people, that possibly are in any one of those circumstances I was in or ever felt like,
there's a lot. There's a lot that
people could relate to.
No, this is a gift. Not many people have the courage to never mind experience what you've experienced, but then to talk about it openly and then do so in a spirit of giving and generosity, which you are doing today, and it's deeply felt. I mean, I feel it right in front of you. So even if it only helped one person.
Thank you. It's my greatest heart's desire. It's something that it makes me happier than anything. I told you, like literally, I don't even know how long we've been talking. I could do this. I could be the Byron Katie talking about this stuff for hours upon hours upon hours, endlessly. It gives me energy and life.
Yeah, and
I feel so happy sharing.
It gives you the gift of, it gives you great joy to share this.
Yeah, and now it's an expansion game. So once you're not surviving, it's like, how can I keep just expanding?
Expanding? What does that mean, expanding?
Well, we have expansion and contraction. So, in our world. So now that my world, I have expanded into this new person, into this new life, I'm curious what all I can experience. And I want to make sure that I practice good energetic hygiene by keeping my energies clear, making sure that my body is open and a fluid vessel for things to come through, making sure my psyche is that way. And then I'm just wondering what all is possible now. And I keep Gay's teachings of the big leap. Anytime I'm expanding beyond my capacity, I'm going to create something to knock me back down. So it's sort of like a little radar for me, like, anytime
I expand beyond my capacity, that's your upper limit.
That's your upper limit.
That's your upper limit problem.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Is this not, sorry to say this, but I read this book and I kind of felt bad about myself. I was like, okay, I got a 0 employee company here. I'm writing. If I leaned into my big leap, I could hire 10 people and get people to follow me around with video cameras and launch my YouTube channel, and I could triple my top line. And I know I could do that. And I'm like, the book is kind of cajoling me in a positive way into doing that. And I felt a little bit more dissatisfaction with what I perceived previously to reading this book as my state of contentment in my life. Well,
then I would say what you might not be doing is exactly what you want to be doing. And I would get really clear with what you actually really want.
I know.
And if that's what you actually really want, and that's the infrastructure that needs it, then of course you're going to be discontent because you're not doing what you actually want.
I know, but the place I get to very quickly after is I just do not want that. I've had employees and I like having the thing I have now. I love spending time with my wife and my kids and writing and giving speeches and getting to podcasts with people. Like, this is my dream. If I was a retired billionaire and I get to choose my perfectly what I want, this is what I wanted. I am doing what I want to do.
Right. Well, we just spent all day in AI and we're actually, I believe, in a new age, and I feel very excited about it. I call myself a futurist because I love...
And an inventor.
And
an entrepreneur of the year. I saw a bunch of awards upstairs.
Yeah, lots of that. But where I actually believe is that if I were coaching you right now, I would tell you to question your belief of what you have to do to get to what you want, because that sounds like a lot of hard work. And I know that we're in an era when things can happen instantly. If you start questioning some of those beliefs, you might could come up with other ways that you could still achieve the goal and not feel discontented without having to do it the way you think you have to do it.
Yeah, I got to get ChatGPT on it.
Well, not just that, but just getting curious. How else could I do this?
At least hang out in the space for a bit.
The way I found the viral video is I said, I don't have the millions of dollars to spend in advertising for these full page ads and for all the internet advertising. I found some rogue marketers that were doing this thing, recruited them to come over and work with me and create a video that's had hundreds of millions of views. Yes. So what I'm telling you is there are other ways than the ways people have done it in the past.
So
coming from an inventor.
Well, the place you're taking me and the place you're talking about and the age that we are in right now, this leads us directly and perfectly into what I think will be our second last question, which is the one from our mutual friend, Jonathan Fields, host of Good Life Project, who introduced us. He introduced us. So Jonathan, I know you're going to listen to this because we talked about this interview before. Our guest in chapter 24, he wants to know, how do you know when you've arrived?
Well, of course, my very trained mind in questioning is wondering what is arrived and have I arrived? That's what's going on in me right now. And I would question that if there is an arrival. And the way what feels right in that moment is anytime I'm present in the present moment, then I have arrived because I'm not living in the past or the future. I'm being present. And I think Jonathan's going to like that answer.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be like, okay.
Suzy,
because arrived is a place that you have to get to. It's that carrot that I chased forever.
Yeah.
Get rid of that damn carrot.
Yeah. Well, this has been a voyage of unprecedented emotional ups and downs. I feel that. I really mean that. It has been, you have taken us on such a journey. And now we are arriving at the end of our conversation. And so I can't thank you enough. It's been a real gift to bear witness to your story in this level of depth and vulnerability. And I just honor the courage that many people have told you that you have, the bravery many people have told you have. Like, we started this conversation for over an hour hanging out all through, and like, here we are sitting on your couch, and I don't even know if we're halfway through your life yet. I mean, it's, you're going to be merged with AI in 50 years for all we know. Like, all I know is we got to bear witness to some of the story so far for the person known as the one and only Suzy Batiz. I would love you to just ingest whatever just happened in this conversation and sort of, reflect back to us any final closing thoughts or piece of wisdom or anything you want to leave the three bookers listening all the way to the end with as we close off this. I cannot think of any word to describe other than exquisitely beautiful sharing conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being such a seriously best interview I've ever witnessed. And for your courage to go to those places, to go, hold on, let's talk about this. I only had one other person who did that, and that was Guy Kawasaki. Yep, he actually stopped me. He goes, hold on. You just said you were molested. Why are you? But even you took that to a whole other level. So I appreciate your skill and ability to direct a story and to guide. It's really something special, and I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. And any nuggets of wisdom, it's like if you want out, you can get out. So the only question is, what are you going to do to get out? And your end result is going to be depending upon your effort and your desire. So I know that I was always looking for a way out, and I got out, and I got happy. And anybody can do that. It's my greatest joy to be able to tell people that. It's like there is a way out. Once you know there's a possibility of a way out, then you can find it. Your way may not be my way. My way may be more radical, but it worked.
Or less radical.
Yeah, you may be doing, there's way more radical therapies I haven't done that I would be interested in. Just because I hadn't tried them.
Oh, thank you, Suzy. Thank you so much for coming on Three Books.
Thank you.
If you want out, you can get out. The only question is, what are you going to do to get there? If you were listening to this and you were waiting for a sign, a message, a piece of energy floating through the universe to kind of give you a push, I hope that Suzy Batiz helped you along your journey. I know with deep truth in my core that she absolutely helped me on mine. So I am here. It is me, just Neil again. I am sitting here back home in Toronto in my basement on the brown couch surrounded by, I got a laptop on my teal, are they teal sweatpants. I'm wearing a white hoodie, and I got my little recording device beside me, reflecting back on, I think, 3 Bookers, you've been with me now. What is it now? 124 chapters, 123 chapters. 124 is coming up shortly, which I know you're going to love. But I mean, that took us somewhere else. We went somewhere else there. And it was a real experience that has been resonating inside me since then, and I hope will sort of stick with you and resonate with you. It's gonna be hard. Well, here's what happened. Actually, I should say it right after we hit record or hit stop on the recording. We were sitting on this couch. We were sitting. Then there was the tacos. Then we were lying. She was lying on one side. I was lying on the other. Like as the conversation kept going, and I had flown in earlier that day. Right, I'd flown in. I think I got to her place like 10 or 11 a.m. We didn't start recording until 7 at night or something. And so I had spent 8+ hours with her and a team of people that she had concocted and brought together just for like a sprint, a 3-day sprint to like launch this whole other company, involving all kinds of fascinating people and fascinating ideas. Some people were from Poo-Pourri, some people were from other parts of her life, and some people were coders, and some people were designers, and some people were idea people, and she was putting it all together. And so right after we stopped recording, she was like, before, she's like, I'll give you a ride home in the black Porsche. I'd always wanted to be I've never been in a Porsche my whole life. I was like, I gotta take her up on this opportunity. But the place I was staying was an hour away, as I was giving a talk the next morning way on the other side of Dallas. And at first she was surprised. She's like, why don't you stay here? You're welcome to stay here. She's all these extra bedrooms. It's a giant 15,000 square foot church, as you heard. I was like, no, I want to, go back and settle and reconvene myself and then, positively prepare for this speech. But as we were kind of getting ready to go, one of these developer guy kind of runs out and he's all excited. He's like, we got it to work. I started working, this project that they're working on, which I'm hoping I can reveal soon. And I will give you an update in the end of the podcast club when I have her launching that project, so I can say more about it than I can now. And she got really into it. And even though it was super late, it's like the energy, the vibration, like we had a lot. And I was like, oh, Suzy, I'll just take an Uber. Like, I'm good. Like you keep doing this. She's like, no, I'll give you a ride. I'm like, no, I can see that you're really into this project. Like, go ahead. So I come back, go to the bathroom, I come back. She's like, I already ordered you an Uber Black. It's waiting outside. And I said, Suzy, an Uber Black, isn't that like triple the cost of an Uber? I was like, Suzy, if you spend all your money, you're not going to have any left, And she's like, that's not how it works, Neil. Like, and the more I give, the more it comes back. And I hope you felt that with her, the way she shared her story. Even when she was talking about people tell me not to say this, but this is how I figured out as an entrepreneur. Like, that is the type of stuff that people say is secret sauce and don't tell anyone. And she just shares it, and she shares everything, and she shares it all in a spirit of helping the energies of you, of me, of the world kind of come to grips with who we are and how we can move forward. It's a really generous and kind spirit. So I kind of headed over back, and I resettled myself, and I just kept thinking about the conversation. So we started texting after. She's like, that was an incredible conversation. It felt like 5 minutes. You know how long it was. So it felt like 5 minutes. And I was really trying to process and sit with elements of this conversation as they stir up inside me. Lots of quotes jump out. I mean, so many quotes, much more than 3. It's going to be hard to kind of narrow them down. But, there's a myth out there that no one wants to help you and that everyone's out to get you. I've found the exact opposite is true. Everyone wants to help you. Everyone wants to support you when you let them know your position. I've been experimenting with this piece of advice. I can't believe how true it truly is. I mean, to be able to even get guests like Suzy and others, like the ones I have had, the ones I have coming, to share these conversations with you in this positive spirit with no ads, nothing. Like we're just doing this. We're doing it. And like it's working because I think we're declaring our position. We're looking for formative books. We're not looking to make a buck off it. We want to kind of have this conversation. So maybe there's something about that you could apply to your own life. I love this quote. I don't have a drinking problem. I had a thinking problem. I was letting my thoughts actually create my suffering. Creating separation from thoughts and from actions is so healthy and so important. And I am a novice at this. I am learning about it, but it's something that I want to lean into in myself. And so hopefully those 4 questions and the work, maybe that sits with some of you and can help kind of provoke your thinking as well. Way back at the beginning, she said a really profound quote. I thought, people often ask, how long did it take you to remodel the place? And I say, you should ask the place how long it took to remodel me. What in your life appears as though a project you are working on when actually it might be a project that's working on you? I feel that way about a book that I'm working on, that I've been working on for 6 years now, all about trust. And you know what? Maybe it's just grinding through me. I kind of think maybe it is. This one, pain begets pain until we start cleaning it up and clearing it up for future generations. It's the same cycle. It's a vibration, and it's going to keep getting repeated. She says for entrepreneurs, stop making good shit and start making great shit. We've got enough good in the world. This phrase, I commit to expanding my capacity for abundance, love, and joy every day as I inspire others to do the same. Finally, I was willing to get rid of my story. I wanted freedom over any story I had. That's kind of the last quote I had picked out here to share with you, but it kind of relates to the very last thing she said. If you want out, you can get out. The only question is, what are you going to do to get out? Once you know there's a way out, you can find it. If you are feeling trapped, helpless, alone, stuck right now and you're listening, please let Suzy's words be a message to you. I'm flashing them, I'm bolding them, I'm underlining them. If you want a way out, you can get out. The only question is, how are you going to do it? Thank you so much to the incredible, truly incredible Suzy Batiz for giving us 3 more books to add to our top 1,000. If you are new here, you can head over to 3books.co. I've got no ads on the page. It's just all the content from the show. There are the show notes. There are the quotes from the show. We're starting to work on transcripts now. I've got a list of all the guests. I've got all the formative books mentioned. So you click the top 1,000. There's every single formative book ever mentioned on the show, including number 1, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This book is already on our top 1,000. That's number 934. It was chosen way back in chapter 23 by Jesse Finkelstein, then in chapter 90 by Nora McInerney, and then in chapter 91 by Edward Packard, who was 91 at the time of the interview, interestingly enough. So, what other books are we going to add? How about number 640, Loving What Is by Byron Katie? I get the feeling that Byron Katie just sold a lot of books through this conversation. Number 639, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. We didn't talk about it a lot here, but I had a lot of questions ready that I didn't get to ask. She's really manifested this relationship with Gay Hendricks into one of mentor-mentee. If you go check out Suzy's Instagram at Suzy Batiz, you'll see that, she talks often about Gay. He's always commenting on her posts. They have developed a really interesting mentor-mentee relationship, and I think that's also a really nice sign that, again, if people know your intentions, they will give you what you want, what you're looking for. She was looking for a big leap. She took a big leap with the help of this book and with the help of her mentor, Mr. Gay Hendricks, perhaps a future guest on this show. I'm visioning it, everybody. Maybe we can manifest it later. Thank you so much to all of you for listening. I know you can hear my emotions still running through me. There are pieces of that conversation that I have regret over, that I have, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that, or I interrupted, or I came across it weird. Let's just throw it all together that you, me, Suzy, sat on a couch in a 15,000 square foot church down in Dallas, Texas, as the moon was rising, as the sun was going down, as the stars were coming out, and we shared a messy, complex, interesting, fascinating, inspiring experience together. Thank you so much to all of you for listening to 3 Books. you still here? Did you make it past the 3-second pause? If so, I want to welcome you back to the End of the Podcast Club. This is the club that I talk directly to you, you talk directly to me. We share voice notes, we share letters, and we kind of always kick things off by playing a phone call. So let's hit the phones right now. By the way, if you're listening to this, and you got this far, I want to hear from you. 1-833-READ-A-LOT. Manifest it. I'm manifesting you calling me. Give me a shout. Let me know a formative book. Let me know a reflection, something you agree with, something you didn't agree with. A dialogue is healthy. 1-833-READ-A-LOT. READALOT. Let's go to the phones now.
Hi, Neil. My name is Lexi Hopkins. I'm a medical student in Greenville, South Carolina. And I found your show through Ologies with Allie Ward, and I just wanted to share the book Beloved. It's Toni Morrison's book, and it changed my life in so many ways. It directed what I studied in college, what I want to do now with my career of medicine, and inspired me to write a book on my own as well. It's just a really incredible book that I wish everybody had the chance to read, love, appreciate, and then reread 3 more times. I wish you heard hers, and just thanks for doing this podcast. I love to learn about reading and hear what other people are reading, and it makes me read more, even though medical school is kind of crazy. Thanks so much. I appreciate you and all the work you do. Have a great day.
Thank you so much to Lexi, the med student down in Greenville, South Carolina. Beloved by Toni Morrison. First of all, the connection from Allie Ward. Like, I just love that Allie Ward is like the gift that kind of keeps on giving. We had her on 3 books back in chapter 113, and I was over on her show, Ologies, for an episode called Awesomeology. If you do not know the show Ologies, please do check it out. She is working so hard to put such beautiful, meaningful, science-based, educational, funny content out on the internet, and she is doing so, I think, better than almost anybody else. I put her up there on a high mantle with Rich Roll. Rich Roll, Allie Ward, Nora McInerney. These are like some of my favorite podcasters. Rich Roll Podcast, Terrible Thanks for Asking, and Ologies, if you want the name of the podcast. So, love the connection. As for Toni Morrison, you know, we have 2 Toni Morrison books on our top 1,000. Back at number 845, chosen by Vivek Shreya on trashing traditional trans tropes. You might remember chapter 53. We had The Bluest Eye. Okay, that was my first Toni Morrison book. I loved it. It was really like startlingly, like shockingly, like, you know, there's scenes there, like there's incest scenes, there's abuse scenes, like, you know, similar to Suzy's story. There are things that catch you off guard because we're not prepared to talk about them in society, and so it can feel a bit traumatic when we do end up entering into these topics. However, to do so in a way that sort of enables us to enrich our own human experience, right? To make us feel like all the feelings and to make us connect and empathize and sort of feel the energy of each other. I mean, that is a path towards healing. And I really believe The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison is just a gift. And so it was a great book. It was also mentioned, by the way, by Cheryl Strayed. So Cheryl Strayed, who was our guest in chapter 69, mentioned that book. And because it was already mentioned by Vivek Shreya, we put the asterisk on it. Right? Now, you've mentioned this, but it's a different book. Of course, you've talked about Beloved. Beloved, I need to get into. I need to get back. I need to read all the way through because I've only read a chunk of it. I read so to prepare for chapter 108 with Mohsen Hamid, who called us up from Lahore, Pakistan. Our so far only guest we've had from Pakistan. Hopefully we can add more over the years. And we have it on the top 1,000 at number 680. And now, Lexi, with your prompting, it's going to go back up into my pile and hopefully the pile of many thousands of others. Toni Morrison is living far beyond her life through the power of words. Thank you, Lexi, for the phone call. And now it's time for the letter of the chapter. You know, I often read a letter at the beginning and the intro. I didn't do an intro today. You know, I wanted to just jump right into that conversation. I know it was a startling conversation at the beginning. And you know, I was talking to Leslie and I was talking to the editor and I was like, should we cut this? Should we trim it? Should we not make it sort of like just jump off the deep end there. Like, it was pretty stark. If you're here at the end, like, you made it through that. And I really wrestled with that. And I hope you felt like I, over the course of the long conversation, served her, Suzy, and the story as best I could. Although there's parts of it that I, if I could do it again, I would probably change. But I try my best. But anyway, we jumped off the deep end, so I didn't even get a chance to say Suzy's bio. Right? Imagine you're at this point in the podcast. You're like, nearing the 3.5-4 hour mark, and you're on the really long drive or a long dog walk, and you're like, oh yeah, who is Suzy? Well, I'll just say as a side note, Suzy is the founder of a $1 billion valued Poo-Pourri, and not only is she founder of this company, she owns it. So usually when you have a $1 billion value company, you own a 12%, and then there's private equity and investment bankers. No, she owns 97%, and the other 3% are her 3 children. She gave them each 1%. Like, she bootstrapped it. Post double bankruptcy, you do that, right? She put her own money in. It was her thing all the way, which is really, really impressive. She also has a company called Supernatural. If you are into healthy cleaning, and you should be, and we all should be, because we shouldn't, have you ever walked into a place and it's like they just clean with like the most toxic chemicals, and you just kind of feel your brain like frying? Supernatural, you got to get into it. Leslie and I use Suzy's stuff. It's wonderful essential oil-based cleaning products. And, she's number 240 on the Forbes Richest Self-Made Women list, right above Serena Williams. She was voted Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year. And so, it's weird to talk about that now, but I wanted to get into the story. And so I didn't also do a review. I usually do a review at the beginning. Thank you to so-and-so for dropping this review. But this time I'm surrounded by literally a pile of letters. Okay, I've got the letters here. I'm going to read some of these letters. They're in beautiful little envelopes from all over the world. You have mailed them to me with the address on 3books.co. It's kind. I really appreciate it. So here's a letter in a little sort of 4x6 card envelope from Nunavut. Nunavut. So if you don't know, Nunavut is the somewhat newly formed territory north of Ontario. And Ontario goes pretty far north. So we're talking like Arctic Circle area, right? Like way up there at the top of the globe. To get a letter from Nunavut, from Bailey. Neil, thank you so much for a copy of Our Book of Awesome. Your books have held a special place in my life since I was a student counselor at summer camp, and now I'm able to read a little bit of awesome every day on our morning announcements at my school. You are welcome. We were so lucky to get a donor who donated 100 copies of the books, and so we shipped them out to schools all over the world, including this one. The cover is a photo. It's a drawing of a boy in a blue parka holding like a husky puppy wearing, I want to say, I'd be guessing like a sealskin type of boot with red ties and tassels on it, and another husky behind him on the snow, kind of digging at the snow. On the back, I can see this card is from Indigenous Collections, and the name of the painting is Inuit Boy with Puppies by Dorothy Francis, if you want to look up and see what I'm seeing. Another card, this one comes from Virginia. It's on a beautiful card from the National Park Foundation. I'm reading the back. Glacier National Park in Montana. So it's got like mountains, the sunrise, like purple flowers in the foreground. I get a letter here here's the card from Jessica. Dear Neil, my name is Jessica Lama. I heard about 3 books while listening to an episode of the Holderness Family podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed each episode I've consumed so far. I'm starting at the beginning because I'm that kind of person. The most recent episode I completed was with Vishwas. He was so amazing. Thank you for sharing these people and books with us. Oh, and I already also read one of the books on the list, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I loved it. My reading list is growing, and I am so excited. Happy and fulfilling reading without judgment, of course, Jessica. Jessica, thank you for the card and for the letter. And by the way, you have beautiful penmanship. It's like a dark navy blue pen with like almost like a comic strip type of font, like a sharp edged, clean lined sans serif. Like a Sherman's Lagoon or a Foxtrot type of font. Maybe I'm manifesting something there, but that's what the beautiful font is. I got a Christmas card I haven't read on the air to Neil from Edward Packard. 92 years old now. Merry Christmas and greetings and best wishes for 2023 to you and your family. If you have not listened to Edward Packard's episode, please check it out. Edward is such a wise and wonderful guy. I've got a lot. I don't know. I don't want to read too many because it's this is why I do this show. I'm not doing it for letters. I mean, that's an extrinsic motivator, but I'm doing it for the joy of love and energy that we are sharing together through the wires, through air, through space, through time, across the world. And it is just a gift. Here is a letter on a big foolscap piece of yellow paper from Margaret Coombs Cherry. Dear Jack of all podcasters, I'm 77 on the winter solstice. Thank you for adding value to my life. You are interesting and interested. My most awesome moment was 37 years ago when I got a perfect score in cribbage. If I had been living in Smiths Falls at this time, this event would have been recorded in the record news. Cribbage is a great relationship tool. You have to look at each other and play. It's my boyfriend's birthday weekend. When I'm writing to you, he's 77. I'm baking him a lemon meringue pie. I'm back in Berkeley for 2 more weeks, and then I'm going back to LGB. If you ever come over this way, you should interview Bonnie Suey of Why We Swim. You can even stay in our RV in the backyard. From Margaret Coombs. Thank you, Margaret, a.k.a. Sunny. I know Sunny well. Sunny has dropped me many beautiful notes over the years. It's a gift and a joy to share all of this with you. Thank you so much for your energy and your love. And now let's do the word of the chapter. And for the word, let's head back to Miss Suzy Batiz.
So are we going to talk about the deuterium depleted water? I grew up being programmed in really metaphysics. He was so adamant. I was really a walking zombie. And the wonderful thing about dissonance, like I had a lot of gust and energy, but I still kept hustling. Dialing for dollars. I started to start barreling through religions. The more I was fumbling around in the dark, and she never wanes in energy. And the fourth one is synchronicity. It's a plethora. People also vibrate with the levity. It's like putting a governor on a car, and that's fine.
Oh, yes, indeed. We did a little word cloud treatment. How could we not? You know, Suzy has such a soothing, sonorous soundscape. It's just nice to hear her voice again. Deuterium. I really wanted to grab deuterium, or maybe zombie, but how about hustling? I feel like there is a strong energy of hustling through this entire conversation. Remember she said a few times, like, you know, I still kept hustling, man. I still kept running. But she also said, like, every hustler knows that. She was really referring to herself as a hustler. And so I looked it up. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, hustle comes from the Dutch word husselen, Husselen, meaning to shake or toss. Over time, the word expanded, meaning to hurry or to obtain by begging. This is from NPR now. By the late 19th and early 20th century, hustle started being used to mean gumption or hard work. Interesting. A 1914 job ad from the Chicago Defender, an African-American newspaper, said delivering the paper was an easy task for any wide-awake boy with a little hustle in him. So that's like 100 plus years ago. That's like, you know, you got to have some gumption, some hard work in you. A year later, the paper profiled little Arthur White, a 12-year-old newsie who was encouraged to hustle and work in early age. Interestingly, around the same time, again, this is all from NPR, so thank you, NPR. Around the same time, hustle also referred to illegal activities, sex work, stealing, common scams. An 1894 article from the LA Times recounted how a young woman was sex trafficked and told that she must hustle for herself. A 1935 article from the Baltimore Afro-American said that by promising a non-existent scholarship, the University of Maryland president was admitting he was giving the applicant a hustle. In other publications, hustle or lack thereof is invoked to make association, sometimes between blackness and laziness. The average colored man does not know how to hustle, said Timothy Thomas Fortune for the Southwestern Christian Advocate in 1888. Fortune was a black economist himself, and he argued that black men enjoy exceptional opportunities like public libraries and free night schools, but were too ignorant to take advantage of them. In short, he concluded, they have only themselves to blame. This is an interesting word. It is a lot more than meets the eye. It's had racist overtones, as we can hear over the years, but it's also kind of meant things that are negatively tinged and positively tinged. From its original origins to shake or to toss, then to obtain by begging, and then to gumption. Interesting. Let's close off with the current definition, okay? Let's go to Merriam-Webster. So this is what it means today in our society. To crowd or push roughly, to convey forcibly or hurriedly, to urge forward precipitously, to obtain by energetic activity, to sell or promote energetically or aggressively. Think of that one, to obtain by energetic activity. Often used with up, like to hustle up. I think that is the meaning that Suzy was describing it. It's a word that has a lot of meaning, a lot of history, and a lot of stuff baked in, like Suzy, like Suzy's story. A lot of history, a lot of stuff baked in, and absolutely to obtaining by energetic activity. Thank you for the sharing of your energetic activity. I feel you. I hear you. I felt you through this entire conversation. It is a gift and a joy to share this type of conversation with you. And I know it was not always comfortable. There were parts of this conversation that made me very uncomfortable, but it's through discomfort and pain and curiosity, I think, that we all learn together. Thank you so much for listening to chapter 122 of 3 books, all the way to the very end. Until the next full moon, may we remember that you are what you eat and you are what you read. Keep turning that page, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.